there's
He
three of them
says
back
no.
there.
He put his thumb up. Said no.
We're good now?
Yeah, that was a yeah. We just dealing with the delay.
Okay. Okay, IT department, let us know if there's any challenges. I'm going to have them go ahead and proceed. Sheree?
Good evening, Council. Tonight, the staff will be presenting a balanced budget for your review and consideration. This budget does not include cost of living increases or bonuses for the staff, but it does include an increase of city medical insurance contribution for those employees who take medical insurance. As you all know, we recently sent out a community survey. We just want to take this time to thank everyone who participated in the survey. That survey identified 5 city service priorities: maintaining 911 emergency response times, maintaining emergency medical response, continuing city street and pothole repair, maintaining Ridgecrest Fire Services and keeping both fire stations open full-time, and maintaining programs to improve the local economy and job creation. To address these priorities, the city is working to repair local streets and roads. Ridgecrest residents have told us that this is their top priority, and they would like us to escalate our continued work on street sweeping and repairing our roads. It is fiscally responsible to escalate maintaining our streets, roads, and potholes now so they don't deteriorate and become more costly to fix in the future. Well-maintained city streets, roads, parks, and recreation centers help protect property values. In addition, the fire department must respond to 2 or more residents at a time almost every day. But due to county actions, without additional stations or without additional source of local funding, the city may need to close one of the 2 city fire stations, putting lives at risk almost daily. And then finally, local business is vital to our local economy. Programs that retain, attract, and help expand businesses in town are important to creating jobs and a vibrant local economy. Tonight we will be going over our budget. We are going to start with the proposed general fund budget, and then we'll review the staffing and the Measure V budget. Then each department will give their presentations. I'll start with the finance department, and then we'll go to Parks and Recreation, then Economic Development and Admin, Police, IT, and then Public Works. To begin with the general fund budget, in fiscal year 21, the amended reserve amount that was budgeted is $16.8 million. 36,000 of that was reserves. We are estimating to take in almost $17.5 million in revenue, 5 of that being the budgeted reserves. For fiscal year 22, we are proposing to take in $21.9 million in revenue. Of that, $3.5 million is reserves, and that reserves is the $31,000 left over from last year from Prop 30, $45,000 for the spay and neuter reserves, and $3,460,372 for Measure B reserves. For our expenditures for the amended budget for 21, we were budgeting $19.3 million. We're estimating to spend about $15.8 million by the end of the year. And for next year, we are proposing $21.5 million. The sources of revenue for next year, Measure V is at 23%, and then we have sales tax at 18%. Our budgeted reserves are 16%, property taxes 12%. The uses by department, interfund transfers and police services are at 34%. Parks and Recreation are at 9%. Finance and IT and Community Development are at 6%. And the expenditures by type, personnel is 40%. Other financing uses is 34%, and that would be our transfers out to other funds. Services is 18%. Capital is 3%. Materials, 2%. For our staffing for fiscal year 22, we have budgeted 147 positions, which is 132.74 FTEs. The total of salary and benefits is $11.8 million. Of that, almost $8 million is wages, $568,000 is taxes, $2.6 million for benefits, and $644,000 for workers' comp. Included in those positions are a few new positions. First, we have the Deputy City Manager, which was approved by Council in fiscal year 21 and is funded by not filling the Parks and Recreation Director and the Administrative Analyst positions. We also have a Junior Accountant that was approved by Council in fiscal year 21, and this is partially funded by wastewater. It's 70% to wastewater and 30% to finance. We're also requesting an Information Systems Technician, which would be funded by the reduction of overtime and the PEG franchise fee revenue. In Parks and Recreation, we're requesting a Maintenance Worker 1, which would be funded by the restructuring of the Parks and Rec Department, which eliminated a Cultural Affairs position. In Public Works, there was an Administrative Secretary that was approved by Council in fiscal year 21, and this is funded in part by not filling the Parks Director and the Analyst positions. And then in Streets, we are requesting 2 Maintenance Worker 1s that would be funded by Measure V. We also have 3 budgeted promotions included in the budget. In Community Development, we would like to promote an Administrative Analyst 1 to an Administrative Analyst 2. In Parks and Recreation, we would like to promote an Administrative Analyst to the Recreation Supervisor and the Cultural Affairs Coordinator to the Administrative Analyst. The General Fund pays for 112 of the positions, which cost $8.6 million. The gas tax has 9.65 positions. RMRA is 1.68 positions. Transit, 11.73. Wastewater, 10.46. The self-insurance fund is 0.45, and fleet maintenance is 1. And then for the Measure V budget, we are estimating to bring in 4.9, almost $5 million in sales tax. And we are also budgeting the reserves of $3,460,372. The uses for Measure V that have been budgeted are for the Police Department, $2.6 million. For the General Fund, Public Works, $210,000. For Streets, $2.1 million, and capital projects, $3,445,000. At the end of fiscal year 20, we had Measure V reserves of $4,264,000, with the estimated revenue for fiscal year 21 of $4.9 million and the estimated expenditures of almost $4.8 million. We will have an additional carryover of $121,000. So for the fiscal year 20 and 21 carryover, we're estimating $4,385,000. Of that, we are budgeting $3,460,000 for the reserves. So at the end of the year, we're estimating $925,000 to be left in Measure V. And finally, the positions funded by Measure V, we have 18 in the Police Department, 0.3 in Public Works, and 7.4 in streets. And that's all I have for the general fund budget, if anyone has any questions. Okay, so we'll move on. I think. I don't know where the finance department. Just keep going.
Yes, she's next.
There it is. Okay, for the finance department. In fiscal year 21, we do anticipate receiving the GFOA Award for Excellence in Financial Reporting. We have been receiving this award since fiscal year 2004. Normally, we have it by this time, but COVID has delayed the awarding of that, so we are still waiting the final word. We did facilitate the annual independent audit with an unmodified audit opinion with no material exception. We efficiently served both internal and external stakeholders through productions of approximately 1,275 business license renewals, 147 new business licenses, and 296 business licenses renewed online, which was something new that we started offering last year. We processed 5,341 invoices and issued 1,805 checks. 941 invoices were paid by EFT. We processed 2,660 timesheets and 108 bus passes and 330 monthly bus passes. We also contracted HDL to conduct a business license audit to ensure all businesses are in compliance of the municipal code. And we have also contracted them to conduct a transient occupancy tax audit and administration services to ensure all lodging facilities are in compliance of the municipal code. Our goals for fiscal year 22 are to facilitate the implementation of new accounting and auditing standards as issued by GASB, provide superior customer service to both city staff and the general public, prepare timely and informative financial reports for other city departments, city manager, city council, other agencies, and citizens, develop citywide payroll policies in an effort to modernize our current processes. That's something we've been working on for the last few years, and we're going to continue working on it. We would like to transition from paper timesheets to e-timesheet module of the financial system. And we would also like to develop accounts payable payment policies to include payment by EFT to more vendors. Our budget for fiscal year 22 is shown on the screen. We are anticipating 500 for revenue, which is the copies and public records request. The budget includes $384,000 in personnel, $180,000 in services, and $14,000 in materials. And some of the services that are included are property and sales tax reports for $40,000, the cost allocation plan for $9,000, GASB 68 reports for $1,600, e-timesheet implementation for $5,200, the state controller's reports for $4,500, annual debt transparency reports for $5,000, GASB 75 reporting $5,000, and the COP disclosure report for $7,000. And also included in that is auditing services, which is $40,000. And that's all I have for the finance. Does anybody have any questions?
Mine is just a fairly simple one, which is just you've got from your year-end projection to your next budgeted, you got the jump of about 65,000. Does that sound about right? On the services list you just showed me, and you said there was 40,000 additional for auditing. That came close to the 120 that we've spent. So what's the additional 65 next year? What else for next year that's a 65 up?
That's including the HDL services for the business license audit and the TOT audit. And then also some of the reports have gone up. And then it also includes the e-timesheet implementation.
Okay, so there's additional costs for the e-timesheet implementation. This
Yes.
is just,
That's going to be a one-time cost.
this is what you did this year. Next year, you're expecting similar
Yes.
costs or a bit more for the e-timesheet?
No, actually, this is for fiscal year 22. I just didn't change it from last year. That's my fault. The title. So.
Okay. Still missing 65,000. And I'm just trying to understand what else, I mean, HDL you have listed at 40, is HDL going to be more like 80?
Let me look.
I'm just totaling them up, so I got 40, 50, 60, 71, plus 7. So I'm going to say 80 to be safe. You said 40,000 for basic auditing, that makes sense, that's 120. And I'm using round numbers, I'm not trying to get down to the cents at all. And so that's like 120. So I'm just trying to figure out what the other 60 is. If it's HDL, we estimated 40. It looks like it's going to be 80. That's why I was just trying to figure out what the other pieces were.
Yeah, it looks like we're estimating HDL to be about 40,000 additional. So we have the property and sales tax reports, but then we also have the audit.
So the 80
Yeah.
total. There
Yeah.
you go. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I'm satisfied. Thank you. I'm not going to wiggle about 10 or 10,000. I just, if it's a big gap like that, I'm just wanting to make sure I understand. So we're looking at HDL for 40,000 for the property tax, and we got another 40,000 estimated for the TOT audit and the business license audit and
Correct.
those things. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
All right. Do you want to-
Any other questions?
Okay.
Just make sure that I'm looking
There you
around.
Oh, no, you're good, yeah. No, I'm just thinking. Focused.
Good evening, Council. So I'm here to propose the budget for FY22 for the Parks and Recreation Department. As you can see, these are our FY21 accomplishments. We got a lot of stuff done over the year. We definitely took advantage of the closure of COVID in order to make some improvements in the Kerr-McGee Community Center, and also took the time to restructure programs and add in some new programs. So you'll see that throughout my presentation. So we replaced the carpet in the meeting rooms at Kerr-McGee. Some of them were original to the building, so they were definitely in need of being replaced. We repaired damaged and painted walls in the meeting rooms. Several of the walls were damaged on the inside because of caulking wearing out on the outside of the building, so they cut out the drywall and replaced all of that and fixed it and painted. We repaired damaged walls and painted inside the old preschool rooms, which we use for our day camp program and will be using for our after-school program if it's approved in the budget. We completed one of the outdoor volleyball courts at Upjohn Park, and we're still working on the one at we've completed the one at Pearson Park, I'm sorry. We're working on the one at Upjohn. They didn't realize that the poles had to be so far down in the ground, so it's taking a little bit more time for that one. We purchased the nets with last year's budget, so it's kind of an overflow into this year's to get it done. We were able to purchase a new maintenance truck. One of ours was totaled in an accident, so we were able to purchase one and replace that one. We renovated the Freedom Park gazebo. The rails were very rusted. We repaired the stucco, painted, and we removed grass around the outside of it to prevent further water damage. We completed the Freedom Park restroom installation project. We're continuing to work on the maintenance of the turf at Leroy Jackson softball and soccer fields. Completed the repair of 3 damaged light pole bases at Leroy Jackson softball fields. Submitted the SPP grant for the pool. We are working on a grant with the MLB for an infield upgrade at Leroy Jackson. That's what we've submitted for that. And we were awarded a per capita grant for $177,000. That's the grant that we're going to use to do more upgrades, or the upgrades, over at the Leroy Jackson softball fields, the 2 lower ones. We polished and cleaned the kitchen at the Kerr-McGee Center. All the appliances, cleaned everything pretty thoroughly. We repaired the exterior of the building as far as like the caulking to try to prevent further water damage to the inside of the building. We installed, there were automatic doors installed, touchless toilets, sinks, and drinking fountains with the CARE Act funds. With that, it caused obviously unfinished work in all of the entryways, so we had to go through and fix that. So there was putting some concrete down, painting, things like that, just to make the entryways look good when people come in. And we also held a rummage sale, and we pretty much cleaned out all of our preschool stuff that we had and went through it. We kept enough, so if we do in the future bring back a preschool classroom, we have plenty to get started and going. We just had a mass amount of things. With that, we raised $750, and we were approved to put it back into the school age program. So we bought stuff for the daycare program, or day camp program, this summer. So I included some photos so you guys could see the meeting rooms painted and the new carpet. That's just one of them. You can see one of the kids playing in day camp that started this week. There's one of the camp classrooms. It's empty because that room's not being used this summer, but it used to be a really awful color, and now it's nice. You can see photos of the gazebo. You can see where they removed the grass and they put DG in there, repainted it, the cap, and then the bathroom. I included a photo of the new maintenance truck, and that's the recreation volleyball court at Pearson Park. We added a net. Everything was pretty much there. It just didn't have a net, so people couldn't really use it. This is a photo of the entryways, the work that was done on the sides of the doors, the ceiling, all of that, and the kitchen. So first up is the administration budget. So for FY22, I didn't do that. That wasn't me.
Go away.
Yeah, I didn't push anything. It just disappeared.
Gary, it looks like we lost the presentation.
I can't do anything.
I'm sure you can just brief off after that.
In my head?
Yeah, that's right.
I think Travis wants to present for me too.
Just tell him you did a great job.
So for admin, we budgeted for personnel $166,000, for services $7,000, materials $1,100, and then ISF allocation is $5,100 for total expenditures of $180,000. For the staffing summary, there's 2 full-time positions. That includes the recreation supervisor and the administrative analyst.
What's ISF?
That's the fleet, so that's like tires and things like that.
Thanks.
So for recreation programs, we budgeted expenditures, personnel is $301,000, services $81,000, materials $50,000, and for staffing, We have budgeted one full-time employee, which is the cultural affairs coordinator. We eliminated one. That's why you see it go from 2 to 1. And we have budgeted for a full-time equivalent of 6 part-time people. And this covers people who are working our day camp program, after-school program, front counter, and our cultural affairs person. So our projected revenue that you see is $269,000, and that's for our recreation programs. Those consist of youth sports, adult sports, which is new, an after-school program, which we're proposing and asking to bring in and see how it goes. Summer day camp program, various summer programs that we offer with contracted people. So people come in and say that they want to teach a class. They sign up through us, and we make revenue off of that. A teen night, which is new. We would like to hold teen night once every single month for a certain age range and allow the teens somewhere to go for a Saturday night or a Friday night just to kind of hang out in a safe environment.
Bold move. Bold move.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Concessions, we sell concessions over there. We did start making some changes last year, and we would make pocketless shorts available for our sports during those times, and they actually sold pretty well because it's hard to find them in this town. A lot of the stores don't carry the ones with no pockets. It's hard for people to find them, so we started selling them. And then drop-ins, that's showers, racquetball, open gym, pickleball, things like that go in the drop-ins. Parks maintenance facilities, I've listed all of the areas that maintenance takes care of. So you've got the maintenance shop, Leroy Jackson Park, which is the sports complex, Pearson Park, Upjohn Park, the Kerr-McGee Youth Sports Complex, Medians, the Kerr-McGee Community Center, City Hall, Freedom Park, Splash Pad, Senior Center, Penny Pool, and the Paseo. So parks maintenance, for expenditures, I budgeted personnel $660,000, services $513,000, materials $136,000, capital $15,000, ISF, which is the fleet, $42,000, totaling $1.3 million. And then staffing, I have requested an additional maintenance person with not filling the cultural affairs person. I feel like this will help us to be able to complete more projects in a more efficient time and also just be able to keep up a little bit better on our day-to-day maintenance requests that come in. So that was part of the restructuring. And then we've also budgeted for 2 seasonal people to come in and help maintenance out during the spring and summer months because those are very busy for them. Projected revenue for parks and facility rentals for FY22 is $129,000. That revenue comes from the Kerr-McGee Sports Complex, the Leroy Jackson Sports Complex, the Kerr-McGee Community Center, and the Senior Center. Something that we did was staff restructuring, so it would be promoting me to recreation supervisor. Jennifer Ledbetter would be promoted to an administrative analyst, and cultural affairs coordinator Melinda Beck retires September 3rd. Her position would not be filled. Jennifer Ledbetter is a cultural affairs coordinator currently, so her position would be filled. New recreation programs that we would like to introduce in FY22 is the after-school program, charging $275 per month per child. In order to break even with that program without subsidization, we would need to have a minimum of 36 kids to run. Our maximum is 60. Adult sports programs, we've budgeted for an adult basketball league and an adult flag football league. We're doing registration based on teams. You'll see for basketball it's $670 per team and $870 per team for flag football. We have a minimum of 10 teams to run for both of those, and that will cover the cost of refs and any type of supplies that we need to purchase for those leagues. The teen night, we budgeted $15 per person. The revenue that we would make for that will pay for the program as well. The ages would be from age 12 to 15, and we would need to have a minimum of 28 kids signed up for the night that we're offering it in order to have it to be able to cover itself. FY22 capital projects with the per capita grant is the Leroy Jackson softball field upgrades. So with the per capita grant, we are going to be working on putting in shaded dugouts on the 2 lower softball fields and shaded spectator seating. We have applied for the community development block grant. Should we be awarded that, that is $114,000. We plan to put fencing around the 2 softball fields, lower softball fields. What's next? Our ongoing turf rehab, trying to repair and bring back some of the grass at Pearson Park. I'm sure some of you have noticed it's not in very good shape right now, so we're working on that and continuing to work on the Leroy Jackson fields. The grass at the fields is a little difficult because they're overused, and right now they're being used more than they have in the past. Softball field upgrades, which is what I just told you guys for the per capita and CDBG grants. We plan to finish painting inside of the Kerr-McGee Community Center. We've done some areas, but not all. The whole thing needs to be painted. We're planning on painting the caps on City Hall and Kerr-McGee, and they would be the same color as the cap on the gazebo, so that everything kind of matches everywhere. We want to remove the grass around the Civic Center to stop the water from spraying on the windows and the stucco and causing damage, and just all the stained windows. It's difficult to get them clean, and we would be conserving water. Replace parking lot lights at the Civic Center, Pearson Park, Upjohn Park with LED lights. Continue to replace old carpet in Kerr-McGee and City Hall. Seek additional grant funding for parks and facilities, and develop more programs for our youth. And I just showed you a couple pictures of the caps, how they look now. So if we painted them green, they would look a whole lot better. And I wanted to show the water damage on the windows, and then you can see the stucco stained, and then you can see holes in our stucco on the exterior. So we did add that into our budget to fix that stuff and repaint the outside. So that's all I have. If you guys have any questions.
Who wants to go first?
I do have one question.
Good, thank you. Somebody else go first. I got like 7, so.
I'm looking at the budget worksheet report, page 9 of 126.
Page 9.
Yeah. Recreation fees, you completely eliminated that. So is that a mistake, or?
So what we did was, in the past, everything was in recreation fees. It wasn't broken up by the activity type.
Okay.
So I feel like it's better and more efficient for us to see what our activities are actually making and costing us. So what we did was we went through and we separated it all. So you'll see like where some of them have zeros, and then others now they have money in there budgeted.
So where do I see that, Ms. Wagner?
So you said you're on page 5?
I'm on page 9.
9, okay.
4503, recreation fees. So that is completely eliminated. So you are saying it should show somewhere else, right?
Yes, so we have
Okay.
different ones, and then there's, so.
Okay, I see it, I see it.
You see it? Okay.
Thank you. Can you go back to personal expenditure slide?
For administration, or which area?
Yeah, I don't know. Let's go to administration.
Okay. So we have this one for maintenance.
Yeah. This is maintenance. So go to administration, please.
So this is for recreation programs. So this is the cultural affairs coordinator, and then our part-time employees.
Okay. So earlier, where was Parks and Rec director shown?
So So that would be this one for the Recreation Administration. So the director isn't there anymore, and it's putting a recreation supervisor and then keeping the analyst, so that didn't change.
Okay. So that's why it is shown less, 166, 417. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody else with any questions?
Okay, so first, obviously, I commend you on some wonderful new things in there. I have a couple questions that instantly come to mind looking at things. The teen night.
Yes.
Number one way to make the success of the teen night work is by having other teens say, come with me to teen night.
Correct.
So what is the strategy or plan to get kids out there the first month? And what I mean by that is you said you need 30 kids to break even, brand the numbers. You need $2,000 a month in revenue in order to make it work, right?
Right.
Are you seeking out sponsors or other community groups in order to help stimulate the first month of participation, i.e. coming from a SSUSD support, coming from local businesses, coming from other groups to help? If you can get the kids to come out the first couple of times without money out of their pocket, you might be able to establish the sustainability. But $15 for the parents is easy as long as they know their friends are there.
Right.
Otherwise, they're not coming.
Right.
So you got to have, you need some fertilizer and some water to make sure that you get it going.
Right.
And I just would encourage you to figure that into your budgetary plans. How are you seeding it?
Okay.
Because if they're not coming, and at $2,000, you may be able to find 3 local businesses that are willing to sponsor it. Each of them might sponsor it for a month. Give yourself a quarter to get the social media presence, the word of mouth out, the kids' involvement, pictures, the coolness. This is something good. Otherwise,
I've been talking to some local business owners that I know, more for like the salons, and then they know a couple of DJs in town and stuff, and they actually said that they would help with sponsoring some and even like providing the food for that. The DJ would sponsor or donate their time and come down and play music one night. So I have been in the works of talking to people, and then just posting flyers, taking them to the middle schools when school's back in and things like that.
perfect. Just a suggestion. Just kids
Yeah.
follow their kids.
Definitely.
I can tell you one way to draw it in is have video game tournaments.
Yes.
Have video game tournaments, have video game tournaments.
Right.
They like to compete against each other. It's cheap, it's easy, and all of a sudden the $15 is nothing because
They get to play video games.
bingo. Okay, number 2. Not that I sound like a dad at all. Where's the summer movie program? I didn't see it here in the plans. I didn't hear
The
any.
movie nights? So those are all sponsored. We go through and we pick them. We don't
Is there
fund
intention
that.
to continue it?
Yes.
It's not listed in the things that we're going to continue.
Right.
It was stopped. I'm just verifying, is that?
Yes, we're going to continue it. So.
Okay, fantastic. I understand they're sponsored.
Yeah, and
It
we will
wasn't
be-
mentioned that
yeah.
it's going to continue, and I want the public to hear. I think those are great. I think that's a fantastic summer use of Freedom Park
Right.
and the splash pad. The budget, as in regards to the LEDs, does this budget have sufficient expenditures to finish the LED project?
Yes.
This has
Yes.
sufficient to finish it.
Yes. I
Okay.
had Nick get quotes before I entered it into the budget.
Excellent. I love the idea of the adult programs. We talked about it at Quality Life. Going to say it again. Consider adult wiffle ball.
Yes.
As goofy as it sounds, it has a unique following, and I'm telling you, the unique programs are what's going to help keep Ridgecrest on the map. And
program?
wiffle ball. Instead of baseball, you use wiffle balls. And as strange as it sounds, I will gladly share with you why. But if you've ever seen somebody try to pitch a wiffle ball with, like, as a pitcher, you go, because your face is kind of like, wow, they can actually do that, and they don't need referees, they don't need umpires. It's if you hit the plate at the back of the balls, then it's a strike. If you don't, it's a ball. And it's either you hit it out, you get an out, or you get a this. It's like 3-player teams. You could do 4-player teams. I mean, but it's such a unique that's why I'm encouraging it.
Okay.
Unique is so good for us right now because we're a unique community, and I love just sharing it. So, last was medians.
Okay.
I actually thought medians were going to be where I was going to get Travis. That's you.
Well, they're shared. So we
Travis?
do some, and Public Works does
Yeah,
some.
I'm teasing. The key here is I understand north of Ridgecrest Boulevard, we're at the mercy of Caltrans. South of Ridgecrest Boulevard is us. But I know that last year is an anomaly. We got it. My question was, is that maintenance one worker trying to address some of these things? That's what the question that I was going to ask is by bringing the additional maintenance worker, can we tell our public that we understand that there's work that needs to be done on the medians and we're making it a priority in the next year?
Yes.
That's all I need to hear. Okay. I have no more questions. We have other people to I say, just so it's clear, I don't want any debate. Is Councilman Rajratnam
Got it.
close? Was asking if we wanted public comment. I don't think we're doing public comment after each of the department hearings.
We can.
We can.
It might be more efficient to do that at the end.
I was going to do it at the end. That's what I was going to say. Is we were going to allow public comment.
It's really council's prerogative, but we could take public comment after every department.
No,
But it's
normally
up to
they
you
have
guys.
public comment at the beginning and then public comment at the end.
Correct.
And I was going to let them run through their different presentation, unless any other member of the council has.
I was just going to say, since when they have one member of the public. Since when we have one member of the public present, why don't we just make it a little bit more interactive and relaxed? And
Agreed.
If they have something.
Callings allowed.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess.
And if we see a flood of calls, then like,
then
okay,
we'll
well, then
stop.
let's hold it. But
The key here is if there's a member of the public or somebody you should call in and you have something that you want to comment, please just get our attention. I'm okay with that. Again, our purpose here is to try and get your feedback and input as well. So I agree 100%. I just didn't want to have to call for it every time if I didn't have to. I already forget. So okay, I have nothing else for Parks and Rec. Anybody else? Thank you, Norsa.
Oh, we gotta go up. Yeah, we gotta go up. Yeah, we took her out of order because she's getting ready to leave to go on vacation to attend her daughter's wedding. So it was important to be able to get her out of here early.
Congratulations, Norsa. First wedding?
Okay, have a short presentation here on community and economic development. Okay, our ongoing economic development activities obviously include the $3 billion rebuild of Channel Lake. The work has started, and it should be completed by 2025. Holiday Inn Express is still under construction, with Town Place Suites by Marriott being on hold. We will be reaching out through our consultant, HDL, to see if we can get a timeline when they may move forward. Because the rumor is that they build modular, and they even thought, or we even thought that they might beat Holiday Inn Express because they're modular and Holiday Inn's not. So we'll try and get an answer on that here in the next few weeks.
Was Town Place the one on Ward?
What's that again?
Was Town Place the one on Ward?
Town Place is the one that's was to be directly east of Taco Bell.
Yeah, Ward. Right. Okay.
Panda Express is under construction. Oasis at China Lake is under construction. They're doing the dirt work. Starbucks and Chipotle will be built first, with the theater to follow. The Tempashasha Shoshone Casino is still working on its financing. The land purchase agreement was extended by council till February of '22. We also are going to be working here shortly with Race to have them install fiber optic build out throughout the entire community. Timeline on that is 18 to 24 months. We still continue to pursue the annexation, and then we're going to still continue to identify and recruit retail businesses that may, fit our community. And we're going to do that primarily through one of our consultants, HDL. We do plan on going to the ICSC conferences this following year. They will have a conference in Vegas in December. We are right now going to be arranging a call with our consultant so we can start talking about the meetings that we will be arranging with potential businesses. Now, we will be asking, and we have budgeted for some slots for maybe a couple of members of the Economic Development Committee to attend us at that conference. I think there is some great value for you guys to attend. I know that previous Councilwoman Stevens had attended, and I think through some of her efforts, and then with the rest of the group, we were able to bring some worthwhile businesses to the community. So we're going to be looking at that over the next year. We'll continue our membership with GAVIA, the Greater Antelope Valley Economic Alliance, the Kern EDC, the RACBB. Obviously, we have one of our analysts who's going to be sitting on the board, and then we'll continue our collaborative effort with IWEDC, China Lake Alliance, the Chamber, as well as the RACBB. We do plan on next year, we do have within the budget funding to hire a social media consultant and to begin funding that effort to be able to improve our outreach to the community. That has been made very clear to me over the last 6 months that that's something that we need to really start working on, so that's within the budget. Some of the planning and building goals, we are going to be updating our engineering standards. I know that Travis will be talking about that a little bit later. We'll also be updating or beginning to update our housing element, and this will be done through a LEAP grant that we received. We'll still continue to update the general plan, getting prepared for that. Continue to update ordinances and municipal code. As you can see, the last several months, we've had Heather, who has brought forward several changes to our municipal code to get some of our planning elements up to date. And then we're going to adopt a streamlined building fee structure, which will where we'll remove the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing fees from the calculation on new builds, and we'll adopt the county's valuation chart. Primarily, what we do right now when we attempt to collect fees or building and planning fees on new development is we value the development on a 2002 valuation chart, but we get billed from the county on a 1994 valuation chart. But when we're also building the fees, we also count individually the number of plumbing, the number of electrical outlets, and then our mechanical fee. So there's a lot of moving parts in there for this for us to make mistakes. So what we're doing is we're going to adopt the county's valuation chart, and we've set a percentage of what our building and planning fee should be. We've set it at 2.2%. Our consultant had set it at 4%, but that was pretty high. At 2.2%, we'll see about an 8% increase in just the building and planning fee, which will help us reimburse some of our costs that we have for that. So if you don't mind turning to page, where are we at on this? I think it's 106 in your document. It should be titled Ridgecrest Plan Check and Building Inspection Fees. If you work your way over to page 108. The stuff that's highlighted is new. So you can see where we've changed the valuation. We have the 2.2% valuation, and then it goes based upon the scale of the cost of the valuation. I do have a change that needs to be made on page 109. In section 3, first paragraph, we're going to change where it says city manager designee may determine valuation based upon similar occupancies and or types or other 1994 construction data. We're going to get rid of other 1994 construction data and put in there engineer or other engineer estimates. That would give us the flexibility that if we have a project that that comes forward that does not have a specific fee attached to it, then we can get an engineer's estimate and we can charge appropriate fee. Currently, Kern County does that. We just had this happen to us here just the other day with Oasis, where they needed to have their parking lot electrical inspected, and we really didn't have a fee structure, even or currently or even now. Kern County does allow engineer estimates, and then they charge a certain percentage, so we're going to mirror that. So we'll be changing the language in there to reflect that. Then if you go to page 19. Yeah, page 119, I'm sorry. 119. I know, I'm sorry. When we were going through and checking and double checking our work, you know, we spent a significant amount of time on this building fee document. And on page 119, when we put it in the budget, we hadn't adjusted the standard remodel building fee chart. It was still calculated at 4%, so we had to readjust it to reflect the 2.2%. So we'll be changing that out as part of the budget process. So you can see it dropped it considerably. It was for a $27,000 project, it was $1,100. Now we're down to $616. So it reduced it considerably. So we caught it. So this is more appropriate. Any questions about that fee chart at all?
I have a quick question. So it was recommended that we go to a 4.1, was it?
It was 4%. It
4%.
That was what we had the April of 2020 cost allocation study, and full cost reimbursement is 4%. Staff's perspective is that that's just way too expensive. That's too much.
Now, do we have any thoughts on if we want to eventually get to the 4% as far as ramping it up over a year?
It's a balancing act. Right now, because there's so much building, we are receiving more funds and building and planning, and so we're getting closer to our full reimbursement. When we established the cost allocation study, we took over a period of time the average of what we normally build and what our normal building permit usage is, and that's what we based the fees on. I feel comfortable right now keeping it 2.2% because it does give us about a 8% bump. Mm-hmm. It does allow us to recover additional funding to go towards our efforts in that area. To go 4% now, I think would not be appropriate. It would raise the fees about $1,000 to $1,200 per home, which I think right now is not the message we want to send to our builders. But what this does is this allows us to deal with some issues we've had in the building department, because now with this formula we can post online. It's fairly simple. here's your valuation chart. It's a simple mathematical equation, and you multiply it by 2.2%, and there is your building and planning fee for your project. So it's much more usable to the public, whereas before, you used to have to be able to count how many, plumbing connections you had, how many outlets you had, and those numbers could change. And it was always subject to making a mistake. And then, of course, when we had a different valuation chart versus the county, it was difficult to make sure that we were recouping our costs. So in other words, they go out and do the inspection, we charge a certain amount, they get paid, we get a little reimbursement. But the way we had it before, we were having to, we were valuing it on a different valuation chart, but we were having to convert it, so it made it very confusing to keep track of us and the difference in how much reimbursement we were getting on each project. So this is more of a streamline.
And I like where you're at with it. And I was just thinking like in the future, and the fact that you've gone through and streamlined a lot of the areas and bringing us up to date on our fees and our structures, that we have a plan for future years to stay on a kind of a steady increases, like small amounts over a long period of time, so that we, kind of bring ourselves up to that current level, but yet, stay current
Right.
with where we need to be, so we're not, going backwards. But, I like where we've gone with it.
Right now, if we want to increase the building fees, we just change that percentage.
Yeah.
And that percentage can change from 2.2 to 2.25 for a slight increase. And it just makes it easy. We can quantify it. I did put some language in here on page 115. We do contract with Willdan for building inspection and plan check. And there are times that, we are working on how to address their billing issue. And what we do not want to do as a city is subsidize somebody's inspection. In other words, not collect enough money. So this gives me the authority that if Willdan increases their fees, we can increase that delta for Willdan, so we collect our reasonable amount in reimbursement.
Very good.
Right. It gives us the ability, otherwise then we're locked into that number. So this way here, we'll let obviously the contractors that are pulling the building permits, we'll let them know, if you want to go with Willdan, this is the cost. If that's the case, and if you want to go with the county, this is the cost. Right now, we think the 2.2% is adequate for both, but we've had some questions on Willdan whether or not we actually need to raise that percentage up for them so we can recoup our costs.
Does that include the cost? Is it based on the cost of the project? How is that 2.2% assessed? On what?
If you have, it's based upon the valuation, the square footage of your building.
Okay.
So you would have 1,700 square foot, you'd multiply it by 5820, and then you would multiply it by, what was that? 5350. You multiply it by 5350 and then multiply it by 2.2%, and that's what your fee would be.
Okay,
So it's very simple.
okay.
Quick question. 1994?
It really doesn't matter what you choose as long as you choose something that's consistent.
Yeah, but I mean, how far behind is the data? I mean, currently, based on my estimation, only 27 years.
They stopped coming out with those reports
Right.
in 2002 that gave you updated valuation data. So essentially, the valuation data that we are using is the one that is the most current for the areas around us for what's being used. So Kern County uses that valuation data. A lot of local cities use that same valuation data. And as long as you have the percentage in there to cover your cost, it doesn't matter what you set that valuation at. Because if that valuation is 5350 and we have a 2.2% adder, well, if that valuation is $20, we would have a 10.5% adder to get. We used our actual numbers to come up with the percentage we needed based on that valuation. So the valuation is just a number to get you to a value. That's it.
You're gonna have to speak, you're gonna have to step up the microphone. I think it's what you're
Yeah.
gonna hear from Rika.
That makes some
Travis.
sense.
Travis, I need you to come up to the microphone. There's
10 people watching online that need to be able to hear you too. So for next time, please.
Right. The reason why we chose the 94 is because that's what the county uses. Now, if the county.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just, I'm a fool if I don't ask. It says,
Yeah, if the county went.
94?
If the county went to another valuation chart, we'd probably adopt that. As long as we are using the county as our contract building inspector, it just makes it easy for us to be able to calculate our fee recovery.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. That at least I understand it. So if I were to take that 2.2%, as you say, that essentially that cost difference is the add-on that essentially brings the valuation to what our current needs
Right.
to be, correct?
And it's easily multiplied, so we can tell the difference between what we're paying the county and then what we're charging the customer, and then what our reimbursement is. Now, there are other issues. The county does sometimes adds additional inspection costs, and so we have, one of the things we need to work a little bit better on is you only get so many inspections from the county before they start charging us more. Well, we have to make sure that when they hit that point, they're notifying the contractor to come in and provide some more funding for us so we stay consistent.
Essentially, the valuation has nothing to do with that 2.2%. That 2.2% is our cost recovery. The valuation just gives us the number that we use to figure what our permit costs are.
Okay.
So whether we called that valuation $5,350 or it was $750, all it would do is change our percentage to get the number we need to make.
It would
the
essentially
count.
reduce the percentage. number.
Exactly. That's all the
Okay.
valuation is. It just gives us a number, a value of the
In order to
project,
be
so
able to
we
go
can
up or down.
calculate to operate off of.
To calculate and the 2.2 is essentially what we believe we need in order to recover our costs of providing the service.
Correct. Correct.
And there's no load to the citizenship on top of that in terms of a value proposition. That's why you suggested going from 4 to 2.2.
Correct, because my belief was that 4% was too high. It was too high of a jump, and I think starting off at 2.2% gives us the ability to monitor this over the next couple of years and then be able to make those adjustments either up or down.
Okay.
Thank you, Travis. I do have one increase that we need to make in the budget, and it has to do with our solid waste in Division 4801, account 5101.000. We need to increase that amount from $30,000 to $110,000, and that's to hire HF&H to assist us over the next 6 months with our negotiating the new waste management contract as well as complying with the new organics mandates. So that'll
That's
be.
what you mentioned the other day. That you
Correct.
were- Okay.
Yeah, I put a
This isn't
plate.
another.
No, I put a placeholder of 30,000 in there, waiting to get our initial quote back, and it came back at 110. But it's a lot of work that they're going to be doing for us to get us there. Megan will be working closely with one of their staff members, and this also includes our, time negotiating with waste management, working with the local food recovery businesses to establish our food recovery program, establishing our internal city policies on our our purchasing policies for certain organics, as well as updating our municipal code to get us in compliance with that regulation. So we have until January to get all of our ordinances and everything adopted, and then we have a period of time after that where we have to start implementing. And I believe that's the end of my presentation. Any other questions about that?
In the city manager budget summary, I just want to clarify. You have you had a budgeted 0.75 or 0.70 budgeted staff to 1.5 in the next fiscal year budget, and obviously an increase in personnel costs accordingly. Who's that three-quarters person that's being assigned under you compared to previously?
That would be the deputy city manager position.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that that's what it was. Thank you very much. It's this change right here. That's what my guess was. Again, I may be asking questions because I want them said on the public record as well.
We're
There's
yeah, we're okay
questions.
with whatever questions you have.
Yeah. So, again, thank you. Okay.
And I believe next we have Chief McLaughlin.
Are you just setting him up to be the last one? Because
He is the last
I did
one.
not do that,
that's going
sir.
to be entertaining.
Good evening, council. Let's see if I can get this. Here to present the proposed budget for the police department. Our overall goal hasn't changed. Maintain the quality of life and safety for those living and visiting in the city of Ridgecrest.
Let me start by complimenting you that your goal has not changed.
Thank you very much.
That was bad.
Our current staffing hasn't changed. We have 32 sworn officers, 19 professional staff, and which includes, well, actually it's 20. We have a part-time employee as well, plus 105 volunteers and no new positions this year. This is how the department is broken down, our functions. We have animal control, our volunteer services, traffic, our dispatch center, patrol, which is our primary, code enforcement, records division, our school resource officer program, and investigations. Here's our organizational chart, how it's broken down. Don't think I need to go through that, but if you'd like to, any questions? Our statistics for last year, total incidents, we handled 34,476 incidents. Total calls for service, 21,674. Out of that, we arrested 2,812 people, and 958 of those were drug-related. Part 1 crimes, went down significantly through COVID. Everybody locked down. As you can see, the year prior, these are fiscal year numbers, by the way. We were at 970. And this past year, to date yesterday, when I ran these numbers, 603. And that's just the trends over since 2009. As you can see, the best year, obviously, this year. Any questions on that? The calls for service. Oops. I think I'm going the wrong way again.
You're going backwards.
Still
going backwards.
Clicking both
Now
ways
he's
here.
going forward.
Forward.
It keeps going back to the same stuff.
Forward.
Oh, there we go.
Travis, do you want to help me in the hand?
Yeah, Travis, you want to help me out?
You know, he had a birthday and he got
Yeah,
older. It's hard to
getting old,
use
as
your
the mayor
arthritic
said.
hand.
As the mayor pointed out, my birthday. Public safety challenges, obviously the future of law enforcement, recruitment and retention. It's becoming a crisis, I would say, not only here, but around the nation, probably around the world. So getting quality candidates is increasingly difficult. We have kind of changed our model from what we'd done previous years and started looking for hometown, homegrown people that want to serve the community. Another thing that's coming up before us is the state is going to release an estimated 76,000 more inmates, including violent and repeat felons. 63,000 of those inmates were convicted of violent crimes, and they'll be eligible for early release. What's that, sir? Yeah. And some of these sentences have been shortened by 1/3 instead of the 1/5 that have been in place since 2017. Also includes 20,000 inmates who are serving life sentences without with the possibility of parole. And since the pandemic started, they've already released 21,000. Obviously, other concerns, mental health is always a concern for us. It did take a slight jump over the past year, but with the crisis stabilization unit here in town, that's helped immensely. We're working with Liberty on a few different things to try and better the service for those folks that need it. Homeless population, like I said yesterday in a meeting, those are difficult to deal with. We don't have the services for them, and we just can't take them to Bakersfield or elsewhere against their will. And drugs, which is increasingly prevalent, dangerous drugs at that, which I'll get into in a minute. Strategy, maintain our current staffing and continue our directed enforcement to those that are known to be out there committing the crimes. Address our juvenile crime as early as possible, and then focus efforts on solving our serious and violent crimes. And we're always looking for ways to become more efficient and effective, including IT, technology. And beautiful thing with Kern County is working with other agencies or share our resources and continue and grow our community outreach as well. These are just some of the things that we do. Our Facebook page, we have over 15,000 followers. Instagram, we started not too long ago, but we're looking at increasing all of those. Probably start using Twitter and everything else. Action Committee, which it's been a lull in that, but it's always there. And, just with other agencies within the city, Women's Center, and other community organizations as well. Our volunteers, they're invaluable. Our PACT volunteers, they do many, many things for us and help us out. Last year, their numbers were down, but to protect them and protect the officers in the department, basically shut them down. They weren't allowed inside the building, but they still did, over 7,000 hours. CERT, our community emergency response team, they help out just as much as PAC does with many, many different things. We can call them for just about anything. And our reserve program and explorers, those are always high-functioning units. The budget, our salaries are about 5.5 million, almost 5.6. Materials, services, and supplies, 721,000. Capital this year, 662, and our ISF is 264. That's for fuel, tires, things like that. Measure V funding funds the 13 officers, records clerks, dispatcher, our code enforcement officer, and a sergeant. We also do our background, employee backgrounds out of there, as well as sending officers to the academy. Just a little bit on the academy. It's when we send somebody, the academy is 6 months long after the background is completed. And then once they graduated, they have to go through a 4-month FTO program. So it's pretty close to a year before they hit the street by themselves. Capital purchases that we requested were 4 patrol vehicles, the radios to go with those vehicles, an animal control van, which they're in desperate need of. Theirs are extremely old. And to reduce cost of our fuel and everything else and maintenance, we'd like to switch to an electric vehicle to help with transports. And this year we have a mandated gift from DOJ that we need to encrypt our radios in order to run somebody or run anything personal. So that project, our estimates come in at about $180,000. And I put in there, hopefully staffing remains the same, to get a K-9 back, and then our ballistic vest program is always in there, which is partially reimbursed through the bulletproof vest program. Some of the completed projects, obviously with COVID, there wasn't a lot going on for a lot of the year, but we did finish the carports in the back. And then along with my staff and Matt and basically everybody else in the city, Parks and Rec, we were able to get all the touchless items put in to reduce COVID. The faucets and toilets and everything else, and automatic doors, the glass partitions around the city, and then this beautiful setup that we now have in the council chambers. Just like to point out the car in the bottom there. That's what one of our patrol cars kind of looks like now. It's close, not quite. It's a patrol car.
Was that Ron's
my
car when he was
glasses
patrolling?
on.
That was Ron's car back when he did patrol.
Since we're talking about those, I'm just curious, where are the touchless toilets? There's actually a thing called a touchless?
Well,
Yeah.
okay. You don't have to touch it with your
I'm
hand.
just asking because I'm wondering. Never
You don't
heard
have to
of that
touch it with your hand if you don't want
Handless
it.
toilet.
It flushes itself.
Sorry, since we're making a joke about
Yeah.
Jake and Elwood, I just had to ask because you had me thinking to myself, where exactly are these?
So, that would be
No,
good.
it's a bad one.
Yeah. So the PD maintenance budget's about $370,000. That includes the maintenance, tires, and the ISF and fuel. Then, like I said earlier, the 4 patrol vehicles that were approved last year, their estimated delivery right now is late September or October. Then we have to get them outfitted, so hopefully October at the latest. Our average mileage for patrol fleet is 161,000 out of 17 cars. And then our highest patrol car mileage is 332,000. Total mileage is 2,739,000 miles. I looked it up again. I think it's 11 times around the world or 10 or something like that. They're wore out.
Is it about a 6-month lead on the vehicles?
Excuse me?
Is it about a 6-month lead on the vehicles?
Yep. So even the ones that we ordered from last fiscal year.
That's why I'm asking.
They just put it in, they're only doing it twice a year now, Ford. So they just put it in the beginning of this month, this week. So those vehicles are supposed to be here sometime September, October.
So if they only do it twice a year, when's the next time?
Probably January.
Is there?
We can still get them on this current one.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I was getting, that's kind of
approved.
where I was going with this.
If
is-
approved, I already checked into that. We can
Is,
do
if
that.
approved next week, can you still, or
Yes.
can you still catch it if it's in June?
Yes.
Okay, even though, and I don't know if I'm speaking for the rest of the council, but I'm just going to say, since we already know it takes 6 months to lead, if we approve this budget, can we instruct the fast track that ordering to this?
Yes.
This process?
This
Okay.
would give the police department 8 new cars.
Agreed, and that's what I was, can we fast track to make sure they're not waiting until January to order again? That's what I was
That was-
asking about leads.
You're correct. That was the intent, was if this was approved, to put the order in.
Okay.
Get those on
And that's
right away.
if we approve it at the 16th.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure, thank you.
Code enforcement, he handled 429 incidents, and he was just hired last year, so he doesn't have a full year in there. He took 148 cases, and I just put some snapshot of cases that he's been doing. The majority of them, the carports were a high number, but we did not send those. We have not done anything with those until further direction. So those are some, and then these are some more. Trees, weeds, vegetation, those are big ones usually. And then sidewalks, which will probably increase now that the heat decided to turn up. So the sidewalks will be popping and stuff, so we'll have to stay up on those. We have, currently we have a house that we've taken to receivership. It's been granted. However, it's delayed till September for another hearing, so hopefully after that we can proceed and get that house taken care of and remove that blight from the neighborhood. And then he's working on several others now to go to Planning Commission. Any questions on code? So last year, some of the great work that they did, the officers, and we gave out 8 life-saving awards. We've recovered large quantities of fentanyl and methamphetamine. At one fentanyl seizure was a pound, which is a lot, if you know anything about that drug. We conducted a child predator operation. Detective Mixon posed as a underage person, and we had people driving here from elsewhere to meet up, and they were surprised. Marijuana cultivation, I'm sure most seen the photos of the house. They destroyed a house, growing marijuana in it, a brand new house. We were lucky to get the suspect. Normally in those cases that you don't get them, you don't even know who they are. So we were able to apprehend him right away. Tobacco grant, they've been running operations. They luckily have only cited between 5 and 6, so that's good. That's good news. We just had a big mail theft case where they're running through Heritage and other locations, 25 victims, and then of those, the suspect also did identity theft out of those on 10 of those victims. We just caught a suspect stealing copper wire from the solar panels up by Lower College Heights. And then the catalytic converter suspects We've had 2 of them now that we caught both groups. This is a picture of Officer Spears under a Honda, making sure that the cat fit that car, and that would be the mayor's car. So, with that, if you have any questions. I got his permission. I told him I was going to do it.
At least he didn't put the picture of me, at 11 o'clock at night, and, hey, that's one rotund mayor. Okay, questions?
No questions. I just hope you guys, I know you do, Ron, especially you're paying attention to the budget. Jed, I know you're paying attention to the budget. I just want to make sure you have all the funding that you need to get done what you need to get done. I know we always have a problem with enough money to retain people, and that's a whole different conversation. But I'm thinking of training, equipment, technology, those sorts of things. Just want to make sure you always have those tools. And I don't know.
Luckily, training and technology, we've been fortunate that we've upgraded a lot of our IT stuff over the past couple of years to come up to this decade, this century. And training, we've had ample budget to send people off to training. A lot of it has switched to virtual during this last year, and it looks like some of that will still remain that way. But with that, you lose a lot of the human interaction and networking. So, but we will still, a lot of the classes that they have to go to are still in person. We've increased our training for mental health and diversity over the past couple months. Everybody just went through some of those. So I can always use more budget, so I'd recommend taking it from Public Works. And, but, we do need to figure out how to, as I mentioned at the beginning, retention is difficult, and our neighboring cities and counties are, they're able to make more by working at those places, so we lose not good but great people to those. So we just need to continue to work towards taking care of our own.
So does your budget include any provision for hiring more officers?
No. You mean increasing staff?
Increasing staff.
No, it does not.
So, obviously, we know the vehicles were needed. I mean, there's no question on that.
Right.
They were needed a year ago. We can streamline those. I kind of have the same sentiments of Councilman Blaze, technology and those types of things needed. I always like to, especially for, if you could throw a wish list item on here that you wish that the beyond the salaries of your staff, trust me, you have 5 unified people that want to fix that as quickly as we possibly can. What would the wish list item be? And I don't know, because see, I again, ignorance is, I don't know if we're walking around with, service pieces that are been passed down through 3 generations, or if the CAM technology, we have none, or you've got radios. I was curious if there's anything on the wish list that.
Yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction by replacing, this will be 8 vehicles now. We need to continue that, because by the time we're done replacing the fleet, it's time to start again, doing at least a couple a year and phasing the ones that are, because they truly, let's be real, the new cars aren't the old ones.
Right.
They are not going to last the mileage that we got out of these
And it's
the
actually
Crown
10
Vics.
cars, right? When we did the 4 and 6, it's 10, if I'm correct. Because the van for
Oh,
animal
yes,
control
correct,
is
yeah,
an important
correct.
vehicle,
Correct.
and
I was just
and
referring to the patrol
patrols,
vehicles,
and the electric vehicle. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe there's another one that you're thinking of that you need that's for one of those areas.
Chief,
Yes.
we could discuss adding another electric vehicle for PACT or code.
That's where I was going to go to, is our packed vehicles. I'm trying to remember the year of that. They have a Crown Vic that they've been using for, we retired it out of patrol probably 15 years ago. And they need a vehicle, and they do they do a lot of patrolling of the city. They do a lot of security, like at boroughs, for homecoming and graduations and all of those things, as well as they take all of our evidence over to Bakersfield every single week. Now, they have a Prius, or a Camry, but that Camry now has probably over 200,000 miles on it. So yeah, a vehicle for them would be great as well. Equipment-wise, I think it was a year and a half ago, the illegal gaming machines. We had a couple of those cases, and the proceeds that were seized during that, once the case was adjudicated and everything, it goes into the PD. So we just ordered all new service weapons with holsters and sights for everybody. So we'll be retiring the old ones out, and so those are all new. So equipment-wise, in the budget, there's always, if we need small things and stuff like that, it's in there. So the big ticket items are obviously people and vehicles. So those are always.
Can we buy Teslas? Can we buy Tesla?
That's my intent.
Okay.
It's the only one that has the range. Nothing else has the range. The Tesla Model S Ludicrous Edition. No, I'm just kidding. It would be the
Hey, don't be
just the
pushing it.
Model 3 or Model Y.
That's
probably.
only for the next
It's a little
chief.
bit bigger. The Model Y, which is a little bit bigger than the 3, and it has a 325-mile range. So once they got there, they could plug in there at the facility and then be able to make it home, no problem.
So, thank you. Sheree, we're using a lot of Measure V carryover dollars this coming year. Is there any reason why we couldn't consider the PACT vehicle?
No?
I'd recommend that if we're going to go that way, maybe they're getting ready to put in the EV charging stations in the back parking lot.
Right.
It would probably be appropriate maybe to pick up 2. So PACT had 2. They could use one for the transport and one for their day-to-day driving around, because those 2 cars are way past their service life.
Yeah.
And obviously, the around town one probably wouldn't need to be a Tesla. They have other things that don't.
No, they can do something smaller for
Right.
the around town. But I mean, I'm just making I'm connecting the dots of the two that says, because if I remember right from the earlier conversation, it's about 950,000 that was going to be the carryover from fiscal year 22 into 23. Is that number accurate? Okay. And we know that that's money that's already publicly committed to Measure V actions, which is supporting our police and our roads. I know that we're going to have Mr. Reed, if he's still awake when he gets up here, talking a lot about what we're doing with Public Works. But I mean, I'm just stating out loud that if we can find, if it's 2 vehicles, fantastic. I mean, but I think we've got the Measure V funds to do these things. And if we're going to place the order and we're going to make the change, let's do it. Let's get off the backside and do it. And let's do it now. Let's do it where we can actually see the impacts in our community 6 months from now, because it's going to have a lead time no matter what. So,
Yeah, Chief, what would you estimate that increase would be for those 2 vehicles?
If we did similar to either a Model 3 or a Y. With that range, you're looking right about just under 60 probably. But for an in-town vehicle for patrol, I'm not sure on that. I didn't.
100 to 120.
Yeah, they didn't have the range that we needed for Bakersfield, so yeah, I didn't really price them. I would guess
40 to
Yeah,
50. That's what I said,
40.
100 to 120,000. And if we just take it out of Public Works, we should be fine.
Would,
Yeah, right. Sorry. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. That's the one thing. I wanted to hear wish list items, and I know that that's the type of thing where we're always trying to be budget conservative, but this isn't about being budget spendy. This is about, we know we have unallocated funds and we have needs. There's no point in sitting on unallocated funds going into each fiscal year if we have needs that we have to address. And this sounds like this is.
right. Would it be acceptable to council if we increase that vehicle line item to 120? That would take care of-
180.
120 or
Well,
180?
because you have one electric vehicle.
Oh, no,
for 60
increase it
already.
Additionally of 120.
To 180.
Right, and that would allow them latitude in the vehicles as well as outfit it with a radio.
Now, do they have to be electric vehicles, or does hybrid vehicles fit into the niche? I mean, because that range issue of going to Bakersfield.
What we were trying to do is, one, conserve fuel at who knows what it's going to be here soon. Two, there's less, you don't have an internal combustion engine and transmission wear and tear. We're hoping that we can get a lot more miles out of one of those to where, we don't know how far it will go, but my assumption is it'll go much further than the cars we have now, as far as if that's all it's used for, is to go back and forth to Bakersfield. It's just all highway miles, and all you're spinning is some electric motors and wearing some tires out. So that was the goal of that, is to help. One, yeah, it costs, but it costs the same as a patrol car costs anyway. And two, hopefully reduce the cost to the city as far as fuel and maintenance goes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I know Kyle was going to say something, but let me just jump in there real quick. Whatever we choose to do, I would encourage us to make sure. You labeled one of them as an electronic prisoner transport, which my suspicion is that the thought process behind that is that you're going to have a cage in the back of that one, correct? Now, the packed vehicle that would transport, let's just say that it's the same make, model vehicle, right? Roughly the same price point, because you need the distance on the EV.
Right, it's the distance that costs.
It's the distance that costs. Is there an advantage to having that packed evidence or transportation vehicle both designed as prisoner transport vehicels, so that you could be able to substitute in the event of a necessity for a second vehicle? You understand you're in a Bakersfield. That one's already left for Bakersfield. It may be an extra of $5,000 right now, but then you'd have the ability to have two potential prisoner transport vehicles, one that could be used as a packed vehicle around town, whatever they're doing, or evidence transfer or whatever thing else, because I'm assuming evidence transfer, they're stacking boxes in the trunk or in the back and transporting, correct?
Yes.
So it may be advantageous to make them both of the Bakersfield or the distance EVs prisoner transport capable.
Right, that's good, yeah.
Any other comments? Any other questions for the chief? Okay. Matt's turn. What's the count right now at Matt? 6 or 7? Man, now you're going to make it easy on me. It was 37 the last time we talked. Now you're down to 6. I mean,
Let's switch, Matt.
All right. Oh, I want that away. Hold, Chief. All right. Evening, Mayor, members of council. All right, we're on a technology budget. So we've been pretty efficient tonight, so congratulations on that. To start, here is an overview of all the systems that we have within IT. It's pretty similar to last year. There's an uptick in a couple servers that we basically have as temp servers because we're spinning up some and decomming some other ones. So that's kind of the jump there. We'll probably see that go down next year. Other than that, from an infrastructure point of view, it's pretty similar to last year. Here's a quick services overview. Not much has changed from last year to this year. Obviously, we had a pretty big hurdle to climb with COVID and and facilitating remote work, that type of thing. Fortunately, whenever we built out our VDI infrastructure early on, we had the backbone for that, so it was pretty easy for us to kind of segue into, remote work capabilities. Major accomplishments, a lot of these are ongoing because they're projects that are internal IT projects, because we've been fortunate over the last couple years to get some money from council. So we've been able to tackle big projects, and in tackling those big projects, some of our infrastructure, OS upgrades, stuff like that has taken a back burner. So now we're catching up on that. So you'll see a lot of that there, along with some CARES Act funding for our media room, our conference rooms, that type of thing. Next Gen 911 for the police dispatch, and endpoint security. So that's one thing that I'll always harp on, and I'll always say that we need to do a good job of is network security and endpoint security, because you'll see that all over the news. That's the biggest challenge in IT nowadays is security. And so I'll have tons of people ask me about IT jobs, and I say, you know what, that's what you need to specialize in, because over the next decade, that's where everything's going. It's been going there for the last decade. It's going to go there for the next decade, because I mean, you have workloads everywhere. You used to have them, all on premise. Now you have them in the cloud. You have them on premise, and it's somewhat of a nightmare for systems administrators to secure all those ones. And so that's really the hot button topic in IT right now. Our goals in 2022, in 2021 we were budgeted to revamp our Wi-Fi throughout the City Hall campus and Parks and Rec, and we're going to be starting that project here soon, and it'll go through into 2022. Also, preparation and planning for desktop refresh project in 2023, and that's kind of what I was talking about with our VDI. In 2017 is when we did our desktop refreshes. Usually those things are on a 3 to 5 year cycle, depending on your organization. We run a little bit more lean, so we're closer to that 5 year number. The last refresh we did, we were closer to 8 years. So that's going to be something that we're gonna start looking into and planning for in the next fiscal year. The domain-wide OS and applications upgrades, I touched on that a little bit in the last slide, and that's basically all of the housework that we need to do, within IT.
Quick question was,
Yep.
for prep and planning for desktop refresh. Just want to clarify a couple things. When you say desktop refresh, I want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yep.
You're talking about replacing the desktop units across the city in terms of the computer itself, the actual hardware, correct?
Yes. So that is the desktop experience that is shown to the end users.
Agreed.
So,
I
yes.
just wanted to clarify that.
Yes.
And second, preparation and planning for fiscal year 23.
Yep.
Do you need the year's worth of time for preparation and planning, or is this something that if the council finds the opportunity for the budgetary opportunity, that it's something that could be moved sooner versus 23. I'm just asking if, when you're talking about your goals, do you need that year's worth of time for the planning?
We are going to need a couple months of preparation and planning. My plan was to start this in Q4 calendar year, and then be ready for that project in spring of next year. So coming back in spring of next year, it could definitely be something that we're ready.
That
to
if
go.
we're having an overproductive, or we're having some strong success, that this is something that could be revisited sooner then.
Absolutely, and that was the plan.
Thank you.
Traffic systems integration to allow remote viewing. That was something that crept up over the last week or two here, in talking to Lauren and Econolight. They have a way to get us video feeds, and so we're going to try and implement that into our current surveillance system, so that give them a little bit more functionality. Expanded access and application services for MDTs, as Chief was talking about it, leveraging technology. That's one big thing that we've talked about down there in PD, is to get services to those MDTs, to get the load off of dispatch, to get to let them do real-time work in the field. And so they've been extremely successul since implementation, but we're going to add a couple more services that are provided by the county to those MDTs that were limited to on-premise before. So that'll be nice. And then the network traffic segregation project. It's more segmentation with network traffic. We did this a couple years ago of segmenting network traffic, and it's tough at a organization our size, because bigger organizations can do this a lot more fluidly. With us, we're kind of an in-between organization, to where it doesn't always make sense for us, but from a network security perspective, it does make sense for us. And so now that we've done a lot of those big ticket projects, we can start getting down into these projects that are almost IT quality of life projects. Here's the budget overview. As you can see, we're pretty much in parity with last year's amended. You can see that there's another employee requested in this budget, and so to go from the 2.15 to the 3 full, that position would be an IT technician, which is actually the position that I started at back here 15 years ago, and that would be something that, as I'll go into my next slides, I'll touch on a little bit more. But budgetary wise, it's pretty close to a wash. Here's our budget increases and new revenues. An $18,000 increase in revenue from PEG funds, which is public education and government funds that allow us, or that we can adopt through ordinance to help us run our local government channel. And so that's one thing that the city manager has done a good job of recognizing and getting it to you guys, so we can get that realized revenue that we could have been getting. So that's going to be a nice increase to the budget, along with the space rentals with IT services, and some of the small projects that we have. We're going to continue our network security camera refresh. There's a PD recording project that we have to, some of the recording systems in PD are antiquated, and so it's time to refresh those. The Wi-Fi overhaul, an extra $5,000 to fortify the rest of that project, and then a cost-neutral addition of the IT technician full-time equivalent position, which is, as was shown in the original budget slide, that's paid for by a reduction in overtime and also some of these other revenues. Here's some future considerations and concerns. As I spoke on earlier, is the network and endpoint security. That's with having financial records, with having police department here, that's always going to be our number one priority and what we want to spend time, fortifying. So that's always the top of our list. The next one is a restructure IT division to fully utilize the full-time equivalent position. And really what that is me as an IT manager, I am more of a sysadmin than an IT manager. I'm constantly working on stuff that you would see a system administrator working on. And so with the addition of that position, I'm going to rely heavily on my specialist to do a lot of that, a lot of that projecting with me, a lot of that sysadmin stuff. So it's going to be a challenge, right off the bat. There's going to be growing pains because he's going to be, giving his stuff to the technician. There's going to be the training. So there's going to be a little bit of, like I said, growing pains for the next couple months until we figure out what's the most efficient way to go about it. Obviously, the fiscal year 2023 desktop replacement project, we're currently in year 5 of those, of the current systems, and then the future server hardware replacement, currently in year 4. So those are things on the horizon that we need to be looking at and be cognizant of needing to spend that money in future budget cycles. But that's pretty much all I had. If you guys have any questions.
A quick question, but it's, are you going to take on the encryption radio project?
I will be working closely with PD. They have a vendor that does all of their radios. Okay. So the majority of that project I'm sure will lie on that vendor. But that's one thing I didn't touch on is I will be working with a lot of those other departments on big projects that they have, because every single one of them, or not every single one of them, a good majority of them has a technology aspect to it.
Sure, absolutely. And your tech refresh, for lack of a better term, you're stating as a concern. So you're worried about it, not just for planning, but mostly just because it's a cost. So you want us to start thinking about it. So, Ron, is it something you're already thinking about when you want that in the budget?
Probably we'd be looking at maybe next year. This was more of just putting it on the radar.
Sure.
For council to understand that it may be in front of you next year, just to give you an idea that Matt and his staff are staying abreast of where we need to be going and making sure we don't have systems that are so antiquated we start having problems. So that gives us just more of a, hey, heads up, it's coming. So we'll probably look at it either next year or the year after, whenever it's appropriate to budget that.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Matt.
Next year or the year after. You're not saying all the way out the fiscal year. You're not saying all the way out the fiscal year 24, though.
No.
Oh, okay. Because the problem is that you have such a efficiency drop off. Your desktop does control your staff efficiency, and there is a precipitable staff efficiency drop off at a certain point.
Absolutely.
I know it well, and I know exactly what you feel like as far as sysadmin. Exactly to the letter. Anybody else have? I have a couple questions, but I'm gonna let everyone else go first.
I just have a question on with disaster preparedness and, like say with the earthquakes, how does that tie into where you sit currently with capabilities to manage?
So yeah, over the last couple of years, we had a pretty big focus on disaster recovery. What we did is some of the systems that we got, we dual purpose them as systems that could be used now, and also systems that can be pulled out of the out of production to be disaster recovery systems, just in case we get into an EOC type situation. So that from a hardware perspective, we did a lot of work on those over the last couple of years. That'll be one of my focuses over the next year or two here, whenever I can kind of offload some of the sysadmin work, is to get those, those policies written, get it, on paper of this is our disaster recovery plan. We have it, we've talked about it, but at the same time, we got to get it on paper. And
Like
so-
power
so-
backups to be able to run your equipment.
Yeah, and so, you know, if we have to go off-site, this is where we're going to go. And, you know, and we've also talked to, you know, to other constituents in the valley, Sierra Sands, you know, so some of those other people to make sure that we are partnered with them in case anything happened from a disaster standpoint.
And things that you would need to do or budget-wise, are you sitting well with that?
Yeah, we're sitting well with that for the next year. That might be something that we revisit later to get specialized hardware for that, so that we're not dual purposing. But for right now, we're looking good on it.
And specialized power backup, you know,
Yeah, and that's another one that I've been talking to city manager about with some of the extra CARES funding or like the ARP funding. There's some other small projects in there for IT that, you know, that we can definitely have conversations about.
I was going to follow up the same way with you, Scott. Assuming that, God forbid, we have another 2019 earthquake in the next couple of years, or whenever, are we? Well, I don't want to have it for the next 100 years, but we know, how are we prepared for that? Because I watch these trucks come in and with all the newspaper and, television and media outlets that were here, we had a hard time, I think, trying to deal with all of them. Are you able to do that now, should that happen? And how does that relate to our generator capacity to accomplish without electricity what we have to do?
So we have had talks about the generator. Our generator is definitely pretty antiquated at this point, and I think that's we've had conversations on that, but that's more of a citywide thing that would fall under the purview of city manager. From an IT perspective, our main server room has one battery backup right now. I've talked about using possibly some of the ARP funds to get a second battery backup to have redundancy between those two, because we do have a single point of failure at that point, and so getting a second circuit because originally in the July 4th earthquake, we had a service outage of about 30 minutes. Because of that, because of the earthquake, one of our battery backup, our transformer, fell over and shut everything down. So we secured it after that, didn't have any outage after the 7.1. But it's something like that of if you have a single choke point, then you're vulnerable at that point, especially with something that's hardwired, you know, a 220 battery backup. So that's one thing that we've had conversations on.
That's what my concern is, that how do we operate without electricity?
Yeah, because it's important that our services stay up, because that's the first thing that people are looking to is public safety whenever a tragedy happens. Yeah.
I got like 5.
All right.
Comes the sysadmin. First, huge compliment. You guys are running lean on your IT.
Appreciate that.
I do IT obviously as a component of my job, and the amount that you're spending on materials I've spent in a month. So, kudos. No, I'm just saying kudos in terms of maintaining for the number of employees what you're doing. Let me compliment you. But I see there's some definite needs here that are going to need to be addressed, even if they're not addressed in this budget cycle. They're going to need to be part of ARP conversations. They're going to need to be a part of future budget conversations. So let's tackle the one that you guys just said, the batteries. A 12 kilowatt battery runs about $25,000. That is a small price to pay for the immediate fallover and the fact that you guys have some forms of solar generation offsite, but potentially being able to provide a small band of kilowatt hours on site to power something to that effect would be huge for that IT department. Needs to really be given consideration in the near future. That's a $100,000 investment that everyone says, I don't know why it's for something that's an emergency, but it is the number one emergency. You mentioned endpoint network security. That is the reputation risk. Lack of power is the functional risk for the PD department. It has to be there. So I respect 100% what you guys are doing in terms of material management and cost management, nothing but compliments and nothing but support. But the council's going to have to look at, when we're talking ARPs or we're talking these things, this was great and beautiful that somebody gave us the money for all this cool stuff, but I would have taken all of this crap down to give you batteries. Because that's what protects the PD to do their office in the moment of crisis. So, we run fiber obviously into the we're running off the digital 395 fiber.
Correct.
For here. Curiosity question, and this Mr. Reed, you may have to chime in on this. When we talk about race, have we had any discussions about putting public-based Wi-Fi off of the race connections inside of our parks? Have we had any conversation about being able to run? And Travis is over there shaking his head, screaming no. But I'm just curious whether that's something that's even been raised, discussed. Again, it's a quality of life, but it's also part of IT management because it involves putting Wi-Fi hotspots, Wi-Fi access points, and it's something that I got to tell you, if I'm a parent at Carnegie's Youth Center or somewhere else or Leroy Jackson, there's a value proposition in creating a value for the community. And I was just curious if that's something that IT and Public Works have had any discussions on. Well, it seems like there's something to talk about in the future.
And we have had some discussions on some functionality with negotiations with race that we could have to both from cost saving measures and also from with expansion measures too.
Right.
We have had some of those conversations, but yeah, absolutely, it's pretty early in it. But yes, the Public Works, City Manager, we've had a little bit of those conversations.
That's great. Like I said, you guys are doing a great job from your leanness perspective. So this is an opportunity for budget to be talked about just this year as well as future years. Absolutely. That's something where if we can get into this process of negotiation, I understand we want kids outdoors playing, and that's the idea. I'm out there playing, but let's be a realist too. Is the family, the transitional family that we're seeing develop in terms of demographics, is mom, dad, 2 kids are out at the park, the kids are playing on the equipment, and what is mom or dad doing? And let's be realistic. And if we have it as a quality for when they come in with sports teams, when they come in with other things, there's a value that potentially can be created.
It's a selling value.
It's a selling value. I'm not trying to say that it's something we want for our families. I'm trying to say it's a selling value for the long-term community as it's, remember, most technological base in the Western United States, hopefully in the next 3 years. And the thought process is how can we make the community match that brand vision at times. So
just to add to that, that also brings our internal network to those, to those areas too, for security cameras, for internal services as well. So absolutely, I agree.
And then, as I asked the PD, do you have some wish that is gone unfulfilled that is low-hanging fruit that we can knock out, or at least put pressure on Ron to squeeze in there? That is there a wish that hasn't been granted that you're just like, please just solve this damn problem?
My biggest wish, to be honest, is that technician, because really that's going to take a lot of
Pretty sure you're getting
off of
that
me.
one.
And so that's one thing that I can start offloading some workloads, get Gary off of some of the workloads that are almost more mundane tasks, and get so that one's going to be really big for us.
Okay.
Matt, how critical is that battery backup?
Battery backup,
He doesn't want to say it.
it's,
You can say it, it's okay.
we've been going on one battery backup for 15 years that I've been here, but that's obviously a risk at this point. It's something that we need to take care of over the next couple of years for sure. I mean,
I think a couple of years is even too long.
yeah,
I think so, too.
Well, the thing was we replaced the battery backup that's in there now. I think it's 3 years ago. So if we're to replace it here real soon, we have a nice, step there that we can replace one every 3 to 4 years, and we're not buying two battery backups.
Is it a rack? Are you talking about? You have a rack battery backup right now?
It's a rack battery backup, but it's
And how
mounted
many
on the ground.
kilowatts?
It's 10K.
Okay, yeah, that's where what's changed is the technology in terms of kilowatt cost per battery.
Yeah.
has started to change dramatically. It's still a little high,
Yeah.
but it's much more balanced. And I mean, I only know that number off the top of my head because I just bought two of them. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's well worth the investment at 25 to 50,000. Maybe 60,000, another 10,000 for the install and the setup and the management of it. But depending on what the kilowatt demand is for those network systems, invaluable.
Yeah, and really the way that works right now is we have our 10K system. It goes to two different circuits that we have on our server rack that services both of our redundant power supplies. What we would do with the secondary battery backup is put one set of our redundant power supplies on one battery backup, one on another one. And that's, that just gives us that extra redundancy because as of right now, if that battery backup in our server room died, then we're running an extension cable from our phone room battery backup all the way over to that one. And so yeah, it's something that,
You're drawing you're drawing out batteries heavy on both sides.
yeah, but, and that's something that we also talked about identifying our EOC circuits too, our circuits that are on generator.
Orange outlets.
Yes,
Power
because
backup outlets,
because whenever they put them in, they're not actually orange outlets. So next time we have a power outage, that's one thing that we need to be sure of every single place that has emergency e-power.
Would the backup battery, would it have its own individual inverter too?
Yes, yeah.
So that way you're not running off one inverter that could fail.
Yeah, usually what the way those work is they run off a 220, they have a step down to 110, and so yeah, they're all pretty well self-contained now. Yeah,
The technologies came a long way.
it really has. It really has.
Matt, I got a question. Software?
Yeah.
I should have looked through the detailed portions, but off the top of your head, and this is a two-part question, how much is it costing us, the city, for software and the software tools that staff uses? And are there software tools the staff needs? Right, so is that something we should allocate in the budget?
From a licensing perspective, we the majority of the 5103 account, I believe it's 5103, is all software. So I'd say that's right around 130,000 is what we spend on just licensing of software. We can look to move some workloads into the cloud. As of right now, I'm repurposing an Exchange server. Going to O365 is definitely an option. But we're in that middle of the road type size of organization that sometimes it makes more sense to be on-prem with some things, and sometimes it makes more sense to be in the cloud with some things. So from an Office 365 standpoint, we're right in the middle of that. Would it benefit us? Well, probably. I mean, it's something that we could definitely look at.
Sure. It was just whatever makes you more efficient, right?
Yeah, and that's the reason that we've stayed on-prem is it hasn't been a really important transition that we've had to make.
Yeah, I think until you get it, and once you have it, you're wondering how you live without it.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Do we want to add funds for the battery backup?
I think it'd be wise.
I personally see it as something that you're talking about disaster management. And I think disaster management in the city of Ridgecrest is probably something that should be on the,
Okay,
on the list.
we'll work it in the budget then.
Okay. A what? Okay.
Do we know what the cost on that is?
Automated transfer switch is minimum.
Oh, yeah, I'm not transfer switch. Oh, yeah.
Minimum 80 to 100K for install and everything.
Well, where do you want to put an automatic transfer switch?
On the backup generator for power permitting.
Okay, so when you say Kerr-McGee, is that that side of the building or is it both sides?
It's an emergency operation.
We have no way to plug a generator into that one, and that's where we house people that need to be housed. And it was a problem, we went after a grant that was being offered, the fire breaking zoning, but we still went after it, so now
We can't hear you.
we have our two portables that we can plug in.
But yeah, again, I would say that's something certainly willing to talk about. I'm going to lean towards, I know what the impact of losing the network would be over, hey, I don't have enough, I can't turn the AC on for you during the summer.
I think if you're going to talk anything about the ATS, it's probably a full replacement of the generator and the ATS. It's probably what it's going to be boiled down to.
I mean, I'm guessing you have an old diesel generator sitting in there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Travis, you have to speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. I thought the mic was.
And that's a bigger project, because you have, I mean, I'm guessing that you have base diesel corrosion that's occurred on the generator itself, plus you'd have an ATS, and so that's for that side?
Correct.
Okay.
It would just be we have portables. It's too expensive to put in a station.
Why don't we do this? Yeah, why don't we just get the backup battery, and we can plan on those other upgrades next year if it's within the budget.
And if I could make the suggestion is, if you go forward with the network battery in this side, where we're talking about actually going with a modern battery charging system as they're starting to be designed today, you will get a lot of information and knowledge towards what to do over there in terms of how your transformers, how you're functional, how many do you need. You know, again, you're going to gain a lot of insight into what your expectations would be.
Well, the reality is that you may not need a generator. You might just need a series of batteries to run your
That is
your
correct.
building. Yeah.
And you judge what it is you're going to run, because if you say you're going to run the entire Kerr-McGee at temperature, that's where you're going to kill yourself on battery. But if your goal is to leave lights on in the Kerr-McGee, you might have 1/5 of the expenditure. The number one use of energy for any building is its temperature controls in all circumstances. So you may be able to find that you can do a little quick study in the process as a joint resource and say, hey, we can get away with a 36 kilowatt system here, and I know it'll give me a minimum of 24 hours of operational uptime, and you may say that's sufficient. And after that, it's we did the best we could under these circumstances.
Yeah. Travis, before you get started, I think Ricka wants to cover one item.
Yeah.
Real quick, I wanted to go over page 90 in your books. What I just handed you is actually an update to that page 90. So you don't specifically have to go there. If you don't want to, you can just look at what I gave you. These fees address my public records requests. These fees have not been updated since, believe it or not, 1994. So,
Sounds like a valuation report.
Yeah. With the uptick in requests, specifically email and electronic requests, we're going to address that with these changes. So currently, we charge $2 for the first page, 20 cents for each additional page, up to 6 pages. Then we go by the ounce, and it's 80 cents an ounce. And that's been for color or black and white. So now we're adding in a color copy charge on here, which is $2 for the first page, 45 cents for a color copy up to 6 pages, and then the 80 cents an ounce. It's a silly way to do it, weighing it. What I do is I take it over to the mailing machine, and I put them on there, and that's how I get my weight. Same machine we use to process our postage, so I know it's accurate. Then what we've added in there is the electronic per page charge. It's the one that's got the 1 asterisk next to it for 10 cents per page. And if you look down below at the explanation, electronic where printing is necessary in order to scan. Right now, we don't have the means, like when we pull an archived email, I don't have the means to transition it straight to PDF and email it. I have to print it, scan it, then email it. So we are charging for this, the paper is what we're doing with this cost. So it says there's going to be electronic where printing is needed in order to scan. You're going to have the actual paper cost plus a 10 cents per page scanning cost to help recoup the direct cost for the hardware that we're using. Okay. And then the other thing that we are adding on there is the scanned emailed documents charge. That one is 10 cents also, I believe, if I'm reading that correctly. Yes. Scanned emailed, I'm sorry, that's the $1.35 per minute. I apologize. That's where we take information and it must be first extracted from a source. So that's in addition to, again, the hard copy costs and then the extracting of $1.35 per minute with a 2-minute minimum. Because what I would have to do is extract that information from a document that might need a lot of redacting, and instead I'm extracting it and building in another document, which by public records, we don't have to actually build documents if we don't have them. But we are going to incorporate this in. And then, of course, we're adding on the service charge as well for the use of a credit card. That's always been standard in finance when we use it, but it's never been actually listed on the admin page. It's always been on the finance page, so we're adding that to the admin page too. And that's all I have. Any questions? 2, go.
Number 1, after 6 pages per ounce charge for color, if it's double the cost to print it, why wouldn't it be double the cost per ounce?
I don't know that I can answer that.
I'm just saying, I mean,
Yeah.
I understand what you're making up for is the ink cost. But if you're saying it's 20 cents per page for black and white, 45 cents for color, then 80 cents per ounce for black and white, $1.60 per ounce for color.
Do you have an objection to that? We did not discuss that with Lloyd when we went over this with him. I'm sure he would have no objection to that.
I'm simply saying that the color ink costs twice as much. It should have the same scale cost relative to the ounce cost.
I'm good with that if Ron and Sheree are good with that. Okay, $1.60.
And then the second was scanned emailed, the 135 per minute. How would a citizen understand what the cost that their request is going to potentially incur? Understand now. I mean, I say I want every agenda for the last 12 months, and it's available online, but I want you to do it. Well, that's where you're going to
Prepare an estimate.
Okay.
Let them know how much it is before I do any of the work.
Cool beans. Then I'm my 2 results.
Okay.
Cool. I just had a question about the per ounce charge. You're having to weigh the pages.
Yep.
Is there any way you could just, like, not have to do that and just charge a per page fee? And that equals to, or is it slightly over that? I mean, because the amount of effort and the time and that goes into, doing records or, copy requests is kind of high, but would that save you steps and time and simplify it?
Not necessarily save me any time. I mean, it's one additional step. I've already have a piece of paper. I walk over there and I weigh it. So that necessarily would not offset anything if we got rid of it. Where it came from, again, is from this 1994 resolution. It was just in there. I went back and looked at old minutes to try and figure out how they came to that or what the justification was, and I found nothing. So I really don't know where it came from. Again, it can be taken out. We can go to a per page cost with a maximum charge if you want to. This is just the way it was in there, and so I kept that per ounce charge.
Yeah, I think anything you could do to simplify it and make sure you're getting the costs, necessary to cover.
Well, we're absolutely not getting costs necessary to cover.
Well, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's the issue I have with when we're having to copy records. It's a burden to the facility that's doing it typically, and it seems like most of the times you don't. It's more effort.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah.
But per government code, they have a right to request the information,
Yeah.
and it's direct costs that we're allowed to recoup, and that's it. So.
So is that a conversation we have to have with Lloyd before we make those changes?
I don't believe so. No,
Okay.
that's a government code. We're good. Yeah, so we can do we're going to change it to $1.60 for the ounce on the color.
Yeah, that's what I'm just saying. If color
That
costs
work?
twice as much, then.
Yeah, we can make those adjustments.
Yep. Okay, that's all I had.
Anybody else want to share anything before we get to this guy?
Yeah, I want to bring something up, Mr. Mayor. I don't think you asked Narissa what her wishes were for Parks and Rec.
I didn't. That's because I had already beaten her over the head with 7 questions, and I kind of hope I know what her wish is, but I can't grant it. It's going to take $8 million. I said I'm hoping. I said I'm hoping I know her
Very
wish.
presumptuous on your part.
No, I said hoping. Marissa, before I begin with Mr. Reed, since they want, is there anything that would be on your wish list that I did not discuss or address? Do you have something that you try and support back and forth to Bakersfield? No, is there anything that I didn't bring up? Okay. I guess I work with her. I talked to her enough that I should have given her that extra opportunity.
Don't go there.
Don't do it. Come on.
Oh,
You're up.
you're up.
It's my turn. I would just like to advise council to either, if you need to go to the restroom or stretch, to do it now. My presentation's like 78 slides, so.
78 slides.
Just kidding.
Not a problem.
Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. It's really not.
I would say before we begin, is there a need for a break?
Yeah, I just didn't know if anybody needed it, because I can get long-winded. I do know that about myself.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call a 10-minute.
Yeah, I just didn't know if anybody needed it, because I can get long-winded. I do know that about myself.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call a 10-minute break. We'll go ahead and resume at 8:10. No, I understand. There's a need for some potty breaks. It's fine.
You guys are lightweight.
I'm fine, but
Those J meetings are rough. Dude, I've seen you go through those, and I'm like,
Yeah,
how's he
right.
drinking coffee?
Dude, I would planet of steel.
I mean, it just helps to get some air underneath.
So,
Yeah. Let's do it. Thank you for indulging a little break there for everyone to take a moment. While we were gone, we went ahead and sent Travis home. But we will go ahead and proceed now with the Public Works debacle. I meant department.
Are you guys seeing the?
There's a delay.
Oh, so I can start. Okay. So as you guys all know, I'm here to talk about Public Works.
Closer to the microphone.
Is it? I can hear myself echoing. Is it?
Now we can, but you turn a lot.
Oh, sorry.
Turn the mic.
Get it right.
Sorry. Man, you know, the one thing I've never had problems with is loud
Being
speaking.
heard.
Yeah. So this is quite a rare feat for me. I feel like I'm yeah, I
Gary,
don't
Gary's
know.
saying to,
Yeah. Thank you. So yeah, so I'm here to present the Public Works budget for 21-22. This is a whoa. Whoa. Well, there we go. I got to figure out what way the buttons go. I pulled a jet on us. So this is that's a little department overview. Here at Public Works, we're responsible for engineering, streets, wastewater, transit, fleet ISF maintenance, and recently building and inspection. The department manages 3 divisions in the general fund, as well as all the divisions in the gas tax fund, the wastewater fund, transit fund, and fleet ISF maintenance fund. This budget summary will highlight the divisions within the general fund, PW fund, and Measure V, PW administration, and engineering divisions. One thing I do want to mention right up front, it was only recently that building came under our purview, and all the time and effort that you saw that went into that building costs, all the accolades deserve to go to Ron. He spent countless amount of time on that, and literally when I got it, it was a polished masterpiece, and I just had to review it and say I agree with your findings. So
It's good to
hey,
know
you got to
what you
give
want.
credit where credit's
Oh,
due, man.
yeah,
You got to
okay.
give credit.
Way to go,
where
Ron.
credit's
Hey, we appreciate it.
due. It was.
Okay, Travis, now you only put yourself on a further uphill battle.
Hey, well. So again, our divisions are engineering, streets, fleet maintenance, transit, wastewater, and now some portion of community development and building.
did Ron build these slides?
And there's one that with the formatting I missed. I'm sorry. So our budget revenue sources and expenditures are engineering, the general fund, and Measure V. Streets, we have gas tax, Measure V, SB1, RMRA. Transit, we have the Transit Development Act, TDA, Federal Transit Assistance, FTA, 5311 Rural, and SB1. And wastewater has its own enterprise fund. And I'm sorry, I made this presentation on a Mac, and when it went to, there was all sorts of problems, and I missed this one slide, fixing it. So first, we want to talk about engineering. Engineering is funded through the general fund. Many of those are from engineering reviews of developers' plans and reimbursements of developer fees. Measure V, we have that goes to matching funds for grant projects such as RSTP, CMAQ, CDBG, HSIP. Funding for small construction projects, yearly software updates, our pavement management system, as well as our recently hired Engineer 1 to do a lot of our construction inspections on our pavement and aid with the slurry program and picking streets for us to do. And the other 2 forms of funding are drainage impact fees and traffic impact fees. And then our street fleets and maintenance, we've got our gas tax fund. That basically pays for street lights, and it funds a portion of our salaries for many of the streets team. You've got your Measure V funding that funds materials, salaries, streets projects, including crack fill, crack seal, slurry, and our slurry seal program. Traffic impact fees are a special set of fees that we can only use on certain streets, and the majority of that is for our arterials, secondaries, and collectors. SB1 and RMRA are funds for materials, personnel, and equipment for crack seal, slurry, and slurry slow programs. It's pretty much similar to Measure V. Our internal service fund, ISF, allocation from other departments, funds repairs and fuel for all of the city fleet vehicles. Transit, we've got our TDA, Transit Development Act, Local Transportation Fund, State Transit Assistance, State SB1, FTA, which is Federal Transit Assistance, and then our Kern County contract, which is basically reimbursement for our trips to Randsburg and to Inyo Kern. And then we have our passenger fare box, which is basically sets a revenue target of what your revenues have to meet versus your overall budget. And one thing to note on that is this year they got rid of fare box because of COVID. It was really, really hard to meet your revenue expectations. Wastewater, one fund, enterprise division, all their revenues and all their expenditures come out of that. Funded by fees collected from homeowners and businesses, which includes a contract with the Navy that shows up on their tax roll and assessments. I missed another one. I'm sorry. So the last portion, what we really have to deal with is the landscape and lighting districts. We all know them well. The drainage benefit districts. That funding is provided through property tax rolls, and it funds landscape maintenance, contract, personnel to complete the needed work, utilities, water and electric, and the required reporting, as well as some staff time to repair all that. Drainage benefit is much of the same. We have no major expenditures expected out of that yet because some of the drainage benefits have not been completely installed to date. So really the only things we'll have is if we have a major event and we have something that washes out, we got to go repair a slope or weed abatement or something like of that nature. So our engineering department, the engineering budget notes, the major things we have this year is we have our Measure V funded engineer one position. He was a recent hire. He was just hired about a month ago. We've got our capital funding for all of our softwares that we use, such as our Trimble, which has survey equipment, which we use for multiple different funds, so it's not 100% funded out of Measure V, and as well as AutoCAD, which is our primary design software that we use when doing any design work for streets, sidewalks, anything like of that nature. The other one we have $4,000 for our non-capital software, which is basically our Street Saver pavement management system. That's what helps us score and rate the streets. That gives us the PCI number, so we can develop our 5-year plan and how we want to allocate our funding for road maintenance.
And Street Saver is how you get your.
Yeah, it's our Street Saver. It's a pavement management software is what we use for that. Fiscal year, God, I thought I fixed all these. The fiscal year 21 accomplishments. We did a design and construction and completion of down street widening from Upjohn to Ridgecrest Boulevard. Design, construction, and completion of Dolphin Avenue from South China Lake Boulevard to about 400 feet west of College Heights Boulevard. Americans with Disabilities Act, our ADA upgrades on Ridgecrest Boulevard, which if you guys haven't gone and looked at all those, most of those came out really, really nice. And then we've basically inventoried all of the ADA ramps in the city, and we are in the process of developing a transition plan to get us to where all of our curb returns are in compliance with current ADA standards. I will say that that is a moving target, so it's always going to be evolving, so that's going to be an ongoing type project. Some other accolades where we got awarded 3 highly competitive Highway Safety Improvement Program grants. One is for advanced crosswalks on Ridgecrest Boulevard, like the ones you see on Downs for people crossing the road by the charter school. Another one is flashing stop signs at all of our major arterial intersections. And the third one, I am drawing a blank on. Do you remember what the third one was? No. Okay. Well, there's one more. So our goals for 22 in engineering are we want to oversee the design and construction of the proposed $3 million Measure V paving project. As we've all spoke about before, we're going to be very, very aggressive with our spending this year and getting streets done for hot mix asphalt. The current plan is to basically do what was proposed in 23 and 25 in 1 year next year. And I'll have some more on that when we get to the Streets Division. We want to oversee the design and construction of the West Ward Avenue RSTP paving project. That's our project from China Lake Boulevard to Norma is Phase 1, and from Norma to Downs is Phase 2. There'll be some other non-participatory work that has to, in the grant, as far as the grant funding goes, because we want to fix some of the drainage issues over there with that one. And we weren't going to oversee the design and construction of the Phase 2 sewer project, which is rehabilitation of trunk lines. That's one of our major our arteries that head out of town, comes down South China Lake Boulevard to the north, hits California, and then heads east out towards the gravity feed line that heads out across the base to the plant. We want to oversee the design and construction of the West Ward Avenue sewer rehabilitation project. So this is a project that we're going to do in preparation for the RSTP funds. Staff felt like it was pretty silly to go in and repave a road and not take a look at our underground infrastructure and make sure that that's going to be in good repair. So we don't want to go get some money to redo a road and then 5 years later have to go tear it all up to fix a sewer line. So one of the big things we're going to do is we want to inspect the 2021 Measure V paving project. As I indicated last night, and with your guys' award of that project, it's going to be a great learning tool for both of our engineer ones, and then we would like to further implement the 5-year pavement plan with the amount of, with the approval of this budget, with the amount of paving that we're going to do, we're going to really need to look into the future of where we want to take this 5-year plan. We need to establish and implement an ADA transition plan. Like I said before, we've already inventoried the city, and we are definitely moving in the right direction on that. The other one has to do with, hey, I got one right. Look at that. The other one is we need to finalize and finish the update of our design standards. This is got some grant funding that goes along with it, and it's not the FLAP grant. What's the actual grant? LEAP. Thank you. So the LEAP grant that the city received is helping fund this. The last time these were updated is 1986. So when you pull our city design standards and there's ones that have scribbles that say void on them, it's pretty unprofessional, so we're trying to do something about that. Other big ones is going to be to oversee the race communication project. As we all know, that's going to be a small invasion. So it's going to be very staff intensive and heavy in making sure we know where things are going and we're not tearing up streets that we shouldn't be tearing up and things like that. One of the other new things that staff is taking on is completing the annual landscape and lighting district and drainage benefit district engineering reports. We're going to manage the construction of an intersection replacement and drainage project on Norma Street and Bowman Road. In essence, we've had localized flooding in that area, and we've had issues with getting water from the west side of Norma to the east side of Norma in the channel. So it's basically to put a big arch culvert in and then redo the intersection over it, because that'll be an open cut method to get that in. That'll be funded out of the drainage impact fee. One of the other small portions that's going to go into that, it'll rebuild some of the retention dams that were in there. So that way, all the ones, if you drive down, you can see they've been all blown out and the pipes are just laying in the bottom. And so it just needs some TLC. Lastly, we're going to participate in the design and inspection of Measure V. There we've got a $600,000 chip seal project. Les and his team in streets are going to work diligently to prep not only the work for this chip seal project, but also prep the same amount of work that we've done to try to do 7 centerline miles worth of the slurry program. So he's got his work cut out for him. Cal OES, we've got a crack fill project. We're hoping to award that in early 22. We've gotten a couple continuances on it, not continuances, time extensions on it, because ultimately we've told Cal OES that in our experience we've seen when we bid projects in the winter, we get a lot better rates than we do when we bid them in the summer, because most of your paving contracts are awarded early, and then contractors plan out when they're going to do them throughout the summer and the paving season. So if you put a contract out late, a lot of contractors throw numbers at it. If they get it, great, they make a huge profit. If they don't, oh well, we've got our year planned out. So we spoke with Cal OES on that, and they were completely on board with allowing another time extension if we believe that it would get better rates. Next department is our streets and fleet maintenance. As mentioned before, you can see the funding that they get for all these. Some of our major street budgets notes, and I didn't put this on there, but I want to make mention of it. We have 2 proposed positions in the budget for, basically, we got another crack fill machine, so we want to implement more crack filling, and we also need the extra bodies for preparation for the slurry program. And when we operate the machine right now, it basically takes all of Les's staff and leaves just himself and one other person for all the other maintenance items that have to go on during that time. So, and sometimes you'll see them, they slurry for 2 or 3 days a week for 4 or 5 weeks straight. So you're left with 2 guys running around doing everything else. We've got $1,127,000 worth of street repair and materials this year, $235,000 for electric and for streetlights, $250,000 for a new vacuum sweeper to prep roads for slurry. So we currently, this last fiscal year, we got a new street sweeper. This is basically more of a rotisserie and got a brush sweeper that we use for along curbs. This vacuum sweeper is actually exactly like how it sounds, a vacuum. So rather than it brushing things into a can, it actually sucks things up. So for the prep work that we do for slurry, we feel that it will significantly increase the amount of cleanup from grinding and cutting weeds out of cracks and doing things like that. So we hope that that cuts down on our slurry time. We're transferring $2,680,000 roughly from Measure V, $250,000 from RMRA, $300,000 from TDA Streets and Roads, and we're expecting about $44,000 from the State of Good Repair for the purchase of new fuel pumps and $48,000 for other equipment. So we've got some other transit-related projects that are going to be going on at I want to say City Hall, but it's not, the City Maintenance Yard, and $300,000 or so for fuel, oil, and lubricants.
Travis, one question. What is this 2 million thing you're talking about? Can you go back?
Yes. What is, I'm sorry?
2,682,149 transferred to Measure V.
So that'll be for a lot of, basically with our general allocation, and that'll be out of reserves for our big project.
From Measure V?
Yes.
Okay.
Into our streets budget, basically.
Thank you.
Yep. So here's some of our major accomplishments. Slurry program we completed. You'll see, I have a list of streets on the next couple slides. We did 8.235 centerline miles this year. That equates to 1,600,000 plus or minus square feet. We awarded a $1.1 million HMA paving project that should kick off here within, I'm going to say, a month to a month and a half. We did purchase a new street sweeper, as you can see on the right. A new oil tank to house our deliveries of slurry oil. We purchased a new Bobcat right here, right at the end, that will aid our staff in grinding high spots and grinding of cracks and prepping for our slurry program. And we had some city input, some city public input that was talking about how they get a lot of nails and screws and things like that with all the construction going on. The public actually brought forth the idea and some emails to myself and to our street supervisor about these tow-behind magnets that pick up metal and magnetic objects out of the road. So we got a 6-foot one right here at the end of the budget that Les is going to tow behind his truck. So as he's driving around to go do all of his maintenance, it will pick up metallic objects and throw them into a can, and he can empty it out every day.
How much is one of those?
It was right around $5,000. It was not very much, so.
I mean, because my first thought is that doesn't need to be on Les's, it needs to be on the back end of a police car. That was my immediate thought, is why are we not putting 2 of those on the back end of 2 patrol vehicles? And
so the only thing I would say to that is police are routinely in areas where they have to back up, and it's a relatively short arm, and you can't see it behind you, so it makes it very, very hard to back up. So anyways, that was some of our accomplishments this year.
are you having him save the jar?
No, but that is a good idea. We could maybe save the jar and every month weigh it and say how much we
It's
picked
just
up.
a great way to, tell the public.
That's a really
Picture of it and show
Take a picture of it. Tell the public what you're doing right.
especially since the public is who recommended it to us.
Yeah, if you're taking 3 jars of screws and nails off the roads, tell the public we're doing this.
Saving your tires.
Yeah, so one of the things the public also brought up is putting it on the back of the street sweeper. So the street sweeper came with a magnet on it, but we have found that the magnet was not quite strong enough, that all it did was stand all the nails and screws up, and you would end up with about 20 to 25 in the tire at any one given time. So we took the magnets off the sweeper.
No, it's a brilliant idea. I mean, if there's another Parks and Rec truck, packed vehicle. I mean, if there's another city vehicle that makes sense for something like that on it, I mean, it seems like that's such a small thing, but literally that's the type of stuff you can really show the public what we're doing.
Jed, you drive around most of the day not doing much. Do you want one?
No, that's right. I'm not meaning that, but there's just opportunity, and it can be. I mean, I don't know what they look like, so it's hard to. How do I get myself on this?
It's basically.
I mean, the back of a bus would make perfect sense too.
Yeah, it's basically just a 6 foot wide, about a foot box that rotates with a cleaner, and it's got a box under it. So as it picks something up and it's hooked to it, it hits the cleaner and it throws it in the box behind it. So they're.
Here we could go into use nail and screw
Code
business.
enforcement. Yeah, there's another one. I mean,
They drive around a lot.
We can, like I said, we can look around and see if we can make something up to find something else. So here's a list of the streets. I'm not going to read them one by one, but you can see it's a pretty long list. Here's a list of the streets that were done in fall. The primary focus of this was on the eastern portion of town. I'm going to say between Gateway, Upjohn, China Lake Boulevard, and Ridgecrest Boulevard. That gives you a general vicinity for a lot of these. Next one, we've got a comprehensive list of, another one. I'm so sorry, guys. A comprehensive list. Yeah, you're getting used to not being able to read what I wrote. Got it. This is a comprehensive list of what we did in spring of 2021. And as you can see, it's another pretty good sized list of streets. And then the moment that everybody's been waiting for, what the heck? And here's the proposed.
And there it is.
And there it is. The proposed $3 million HMA paving program this year. The list of streets are subject to change. We haven't finalized a list for what we're going to do, but these are the ones that were proposed in the 23 and the 25 paving. I know it doesn't seem like there's a lot of streets on here, but when you really start breaking it down, $3 million does roughly about 3 centerline miles of our roads. So when you start looking at PEG from Vera to Felspar, that's over 3/4 of a mile. So we're talking from the Water District to the other side of Las Flores.
Quick question, Travis. You already have a proposed 5-year plan.
Correct.
And I believe that's up on the city website. Have you added this new set of streets to that?
These streets are the projects that were proposed in 23 and in 25 for this. So we do a big paving project every other year. So this is basically taking the 23 and the 25, mashing them into one project and moving them up to this year. So it is the same streets that are on that list.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah, so Atkins, Fairview, Graff, Peg, Reeves, Sierra Vista, and Vera. It's primarily focused on the north end of town, trying to finish that area out, and then west of Norma. The other project that I don't have listed on here specifically is the $600,000 chip seal project. We've got a lot of China Lake Boulevard on the south end of town from the city boundary down to Down Street. We've got half of Drummond. That's the only portion of Drummond that hasn't been touched. And you've got a bunch of other little streets here and there that are Gold Canyon. And the list is fleeting me. But next, we've got our ISF fleet maintenance. They're thing is their major source of, not revenues, but expenditures are fuel procurement and in-house maintenance for city vehicles and equipment. There's not much magic here. Danny works his butt off. Our fleet staff continues to maintain all our city vehicles to a level of service provided with the absolute bare bone minimum of staff, and their job performance continues to exceed the expectations of all of us.
I was going to say, are you keeping up? Because I saw at the beginning of the night when we had the general overview, there was only one maintenance worker
Yes, sir.
for all of the stuff that you have.
He's a busy guy.
Danny doesn't work on the police fleet. That's all outsourced.
Yeah, streets and maintenance is all that goes
And transit.
in transit, yeah. So the majority
Still
of
a lot for one guy.
it's quite a bit, but he does do a great job. So,
And he's keeping up.
and he does keep up quite well. So, next is transit. Basically, I will make sure this does not happen next year. The transit basically has budgeted grants this year of LC Top, PT Mizia, and don't quote me on how you're supposed to pronounce that, for about $117,000, which will be used to purchase a new electric buses. We've got $60K from Route Match. Some of the major accomplishments, and one that Chris and all the transit team deserves accolades for, is we had uninterrupted service during the whole pandemic. So Dial a Ride was available for all the time that somebody needed transportation during the pandemic. They basically hired and trained an entirely new driving staff. The turnover in the driving staff has been out of this world. And then we got our Title VI program approved for the next 3 years, which Title VI is equal rights, things of that nature. So it's always it's a work in progress every year, and it's very time consuming for him, and he did a great job of getting all that stuff done this year. So the fiscal year 22, the major increases that you see in the budget are basically all project related. Our goals this year are to continue to provide uninterrupted service, implement the use of electric vehicles, aid in the construction of the new City Yard EV charging stations and the solar shade structure, oversee the construction of the City Yard gas pumps, and explore advanced driver training. So Chris brought to me some new training opportunities that he saw for drivers that might be of use to them. And he wants to have a couple of them go down and see that and see if it's helpful and beneficial to all of our transit drivers. You know, as we all know, every time you're driving other people around, you've got added risk from distraction, and anytime you're putting other people's lives in your hands, there's an extra level of care that goes into that. And lastly, he wants to certify all his transit employees for CPR, AED, and first aid. And I've been thinking I'm actually going to try to piggyback off that and try to get all of Public Works certified. You know, we've got a lot of Public Works people that are constantly out in the city, and they could be witness to an accident, and you never know what the difference could be in saving somebody's life before emergency services can get there. So I thought that was a great idea by him. Next is wastewater, and last. So wastewater budget notes, they hired a pretreatment inspector. That's basically to see what kind of influent we have coming into our plant. The best way to regulate your effluent is to monitor your influent. So we are making sure we know exactly what we are getting. We have $300,000 budgeted for a new sewer Vector truck, $79,000 for biosolids removal, for a yearly removal of those, and then $5.4 million out of the wastewater reserve fund for preliminary engineering and the completion of the environmental document for the new treatment facility. And staff is currently seeking grants for this. And then $1.5 million for capital projects. We've got a digester that's probably going to have some. We've got the Ward Phase 2 Ward sewer and the Phase 2 sewer on California and China Lake Boulevard that are coming up. So some of our major accomplishments this year was we entered into an easement and service agreement with the Navy for the gravity inlet main and the force return main to the alfalfa fields. Set the groundwork for the design of a new 5 million gallon a day secondary treatment facility. concluded the videoing of all the collection system. So basically, we did
Are
that
you-
once before.
Are you a slide off?
Am I? I am. There you go. Sorry, I thought I hit the button. Concluded the videoing of all the collection systems post-earthquake inspection. And we finally have a full staff at the treatment facility. Replaced a grip pump, implemented a plan to fix the digester, and procured some new vehicles for wastewater staff. Our goals for this year are to complete the environmental process for the construction of the new wastewater treatment facility, design and construct the Phase 2 sewer collection rehabilitation project, design and construct all the necessary corrections that are needed so we can do the Ward RSCP project, and then complete our 5-year sanitary sewer management plan. So every 5 years, we do this sanitary sewer management plan, and it includes a sanitary sewer overflow response plan, and then our FOG plan, which is for your plan for fat oils and greases. And then you have a 2-year audit that goes into these. So it's a pretty comprehensive report that has to be done to basically, it sets your groundwork for how you're supposed to handle certain situations. So, and that's it. Any questions?
Does your department come up with that plan, that 5-year plan?
So that plan's pretty comprehensive. I don't have the staff currently to do that. So we're actually using the same consultant that's helping us with the plant, who's done numerous of these and been apprised of a lot of how other facilities that run the same type of treatment process that we do things and have better implemented ways of mitigating problems that can arise. So we're utilizing Mike Nunley and Associates.
And it's unique to our plant?
Yes, so it's a plan that is unique to basically how we are going to respond in the event of an emergency. So the SSORP is if we have an overflow. It'll take into account things like if we have a blockage and sewage spills out onto the street and things of that nature. So.
I just wonder if we have to redo it as soon as it is next time.
The good news is you have an audit every 2 years, and you have a comprehensive every 5 years. You have to redo it. So, and I'm going to say with construction and environmental, I say we'll be pretty close to the life of our document by the time the plan is up and running. So.
So, our one guest of the evening, I know that wastewater was something that you had interest in. If you'd like to, we'd welcome any public comment. If you'd like to come on up to the podium, if you don't mind, we'll be. Okay, sir.
It gets hot up here with the light.
You're just nervous, Travis. It's called your PowerPoint.
My name's Bill Campbell. I live at 976 Roosevelt.
So every new slide was an adventure.
Can we turn the mic on, Ron?
Yeah, it's
Do I
on.
need to be talk in there more?
There you go, sir.
So I appreciate you, because I do have hearing aids, and I do the best I can. Anyway, I was disappointed that we're taking money out of our wastewater fund to maintain what we have, but as we know, I've seen Stan and them other guys come down here and say, well, what's the Navy say? Anyway, just a disappointment. I'm just telling you what my disappointment was, that we're taking money out of this fund now that was supposed to build a new one. And
Yep.
anyway, that's my concern. It's on one other concern I have, so I can go home. It's on page 71. Do you guys have pages?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
71. Obligation 939.
Yeah, the RDA obligation. Yes, sir. We have it in front of us. sir.
Okay. We owe $17,970. They took out the $18 million They got an $18 million bond or 19, I'm not sure.
It's more than that. It was
A couple of you's been on the.
Yeah, that's
representing
several
this
years. Sir, just like you say, that's several years old. I believe the bond was originally closer to 25 million.
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you for that information. But what are we saying here? We got to borrow $18 million more than our city budget in 1 year? And why are we continuing this? I know that what they said about California Retirement Fund couldn't keep up with 7%. So we had to come up with some money for retirement. Am I correct?
No, I can answer both of those questions for you. We can start with the sewer. The money, the $5 million that we're using out of the reserve fund is actually for the planning and engineering of the new facility.
Okay.
So we do have some repairs that we have to make to the current facility, but those are necessary. We still anticipate the current facility in operation for at least 3 years. And so for the sanitary safety of the community and staying in compliance with the EPA and all of our permits, we still have to repair the facility. And then your second question has to do with the RDA. Those bonds are being paid back through the property tax increment, so it does not come out of the general fund. And because this is part of the winding down of the redevelopment agency, we had an outstanding loan out there that's being paid back through an increment. And that loan was taken out, I believe, close to 7-8 years ago. And so we have another 20 some odd years to pay it off, but that does not come out of the general fund. That is a wind down amount that's owed from the previous redevelopment agency.
Okay. Thank you for that. The problem I have is that it's a city that's supposed to control some of the money that we spend, and I think they do a good job. And I think we have a great police department, great hospital, great schools. Super. All my grandkids went through the whole way. Super schools, but it's hard that we're going more in debt. I'm just thinking 4.5%, whatever you guys want to figure for the $18 million. 4.5% is some money.
Yeah,
Correct?
Yeah, we refinanced those bonds a couple of years ago so we could save some money towards the redevelopment agency which then allows for that excess money to come back to the city. So we did refinance those a couple of years ago at a much lower rate, but that is an obligation that was taken on by the previous redevelopment agency that we still have to manage as a successor agency on the wind down of it.
And we are not taking on any debt in this budget, nor have we taken on any debt in any budget for the last, I believe, 3 years?
Correct.
I mean, so this is a balanced budget that is not taking on any debt and is only unwinding the development agency actions that have occurred in the past. And there's no advantage to trying to, if you want to say, accelerate the debt payoff or something to that effect, because until this RDA wind down is completed, which the state started, I believe, in
2012.
2012. We're at the mercy of the process. I mean, there's several, was it 6 million? That were 2035 or something like that. I mean, there's something like $6 million owed to the city that the state has said we might come around to give you sometime around 2035 from this process, because they're going to stretch out the wind down just the same. But there's no new debt being added to the city's obligations in terms of debt on behalf of the city. I just want to be clear about that.
I don't have any trouble with obligations and stuff like that. I just think if we keep borrowing money, when this comes due, will we have to borrow some more money? anyway, I don't want to, I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you
I can't say
being
how
here.
you sit here and deal with us. I was disappointed that you guys did all this, and we, you know, you can see what we have, and you got me, so.
That's an
I
honor.
appreciate your time.
That's an honor to have you.
Yeah, we
We're here asking questions.
Nice.
I just had some questions, and I look at the big numbers. And, you know, we have $57 million in our wastewater fund, and now we're going to eat up some of it.
But I don't know if you heard City Manager Strand. That's to begin the construction and planning of the new facility. The new facility agreement is now in place that we're planning a construction in late 23, 24 of the facility. That we've been, essentially, if you want to call it a savings account in in common terms, we've established them. That's going to allow us to build that facility with probably less than 1/3 of the total cost being in debt servicing, which is will end up being a massive savings for the city in long-term debt management, because we have that reserve ready to be put to use in rebuilding that facility.
Okay. As a homeowner, I pay property tax. I have the problem of, this was, the tax on the wastewater was $120, which wasn't right. I paid a year for wastewater and on my taxes. Now it's up over $400. So we rolled with this more money, but I was hoping we could do something better than what we're doing. I'm sorry.
But I just got, best I can tell you, I promise you, the new facility is, the Navy, we finally crossed the big bridge, which was getting the agreement with the Navy. And I can tell you, as somebody who wasn't on this dais but was talking about it behind the scenes in D.C. for years, we're finally past that big hurdle that we can get that new facility in place within the next several years. It's a priority goal.
To say something good at the end here, I was down here for 6 years trying to get some money for the senior center, and a couple of years ago we got it, and we fixed the parking lot, and we did a lot, and with Meals on Wheels, they do about 90 a day. That counts for people that can't get out. So anyway,
It was a big deal during the pandemic.
it's a compassion for me to get the senior center, and we had the right people to do it at the right time. Thank you.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you. Okay, council comments.
I had a question, and I was trying to find where I read it, but you talked about funding for substandard streets, and most of that went to the Ridgecrest Heights area. Is that the only outside source for substandard streets that came from the building permits? I think it was. Is that correct?
So yeah, there's a substandard street fund for basically, we have a list of streets that we've determined that were installed as a substandard street, and that money can only be utilized for projects on substandard streets. I actually don't know if we've done a project out of the substandard street fund. I know in my time being here, probably the last 10 years, I don't think we have done one. They have done projects in the past, but not recently. We do plan on developing a project with that funding, but because we have so many other projects in the queue, that will probably be the following budget cycle.
Okay, I was concerned that we hear people talk about how bad the driving is in the Heights area.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I was concerned about, we always hear how bad the driving is in the Ridgecrest Heights area, and if we can point to that as funding for those streets that they felt like they'd already been paid for. And I just want to make sure that we understand that that is solely used, that funding is solely used for that particular area. Is that correct?
That funding is used on only streets that have been deemed to be substandard per our list that were approved. And the majority are in Ridgecrest Heights. I will say this, with the way the fee is set up,
and the way the fee has not been studied over the years and has not been raised, it's very hard to do a paving project for all those streets based on how the fee was managed. Now, I will say this, there are a lot more prevalent issues up there that need to be fixed before we go in and do all these roads, such as all the curb and gutter needs to be built out, all the east-west running streets that capture county water and have county water run down them need to be improved so we can escort the water off of Mahan Street to Down Street and get it into the Bowman Channel. And that is all stuff that needs to happen for not only the safety of the residents and the homes that are up there, but to protect the infrastructure if we ever put it in.
Yep, part one of the projects would be a combination of funds of Measure V and the substandard fee to be able to really address those roads. And we had thought about that being a project this year, but it was put on the back burner with moving forward with the 23-25 repair project and all the other projects we have. So
I understand. Yeah. I was just surprised because I had not, in all these years, I had never heard that report. And if I did, it went past me and over my head. And I was pleased to see that that is being done and used. I just couldn't find it back when I wanted to quote it back to you.
right, I think we have about a little over 700,000 in the substandard.
Yeah,
fund,
that's
yeah.
what it looked like, yeah.
We're aware of it. We know we want to do a project on it. It's just a matter of timing.
That was mine, thank you.
Yep. Do you have anything, Scott? No further questions.
Mine's kind of a simple one. Have you thought through what the inflationary impact is on your fiscal year goals? And what I mean by that is we know we're seeing a materials cost change pretty dramatically nationwide, and we know that there's most likely a material shortage as well that comes from COVID-19 affecting the creation and manufacturing of supplies. Does the goals and does this budget account for any inflationary concerns? And if it does not, if you had a 10% across the board inflationary increase, does that cost one road, two roads, 5 roads? And I don't know if that's even a question you can answer, but if you could at least address the inflationary concerns as it relates to the projects.
I think I would say that given what we saw with our bidding of this last project, and which is right in the heart of when I feel like all the material crises would be, and it was pretty close in retrospect to what we had seen in previous projects as far as costs for asphalt, costs for materials,
When did
costs for
that bid
installation.
first go out? Just curiosity.
That bid went out we opened it in March, so it went out in either January or in December.
Yeah, okay.
So it was right in the heart of.
No, it was before.
No, this January, December.
Yeah, but the inflationary pops didn't start until March or April. The real bad pops, the things that we're starting to see with fuel, lumber, those types of things. It's okay. That's good. Maybe 10%. But
I can tell you this, though, but if that was going to be a huge concern in this world right now, you would see contractors pulling their bids on us right now and not being willing to do these projects for the number that they bid because of when it's going in the paving season. So. Right.
And you also had 10% contingency in the earlier.
Correct.
bid. Yeah.
We always have a contingency, and most of those contingencies are for like unforeseens.
Yeah.
So as we know, we do anytime we go in and we resurface a road, which is what HMA paving a project would be. We have to do the ADA upgrades for the curb returns. So there's a lot of unknowns with that. Some of these we're trying to curb cut to save the cost of them, and we might have spalling or it might pop. So you might have some change order stuff for fixing some items such as that. So we always want to at least have a little bit of contingency built in for these things that show up so we don't have to constantly come back to you, hey, we have a change order, hey, we have a change order.
Yeah.
So
you did great at that. Race.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to agree with you the way you described it, which is if race happens, all of a sudden I'm going to have a Godzilla-sized project that just crawled up my backside out of nowhere, and and I got to deal with. Is it advisable for the council to have, as we get maybe 4 or 5 months down the road here into the amended budget process or into an even mid-year budget discussions, that you're going to need support staff to manage the race project?
It's already budgeted.
Already budgeted.
Thank you very much. But at least we're addressing it now. That's what I want to hear, is I want to hear that we're addressing those aspects, because if you have that size project thrown on your shoulders.
Yeah, when they came into our first meeting, they said they have 21 board crews ready to go. So that is, we do not have the staff that we would need to oversee that and to make sure that things are going on. So we did budget for staff augmentation for stuff like that.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Okay. I believe you're free.
Good job. All 76.
Thank you very much. Well, I definitely am more than willing to say thank you to all of the different department heads and everyone who participated in the process tonight and asked fantastic questions and had great conversations. Thank you very, very much. I want to do one last.
Wait a minute. He asked for public comment.
I'm going to ask for public comment right now.
I'm sorry.
The last thing I was going to do is ask if there was any public comment on the phone lines. Is there anybody who was calling in who would like to discuss any one of the items that we've discussed in the workshop today? I'm not seeing any calls. Is there any public comment from the floor? I'm not seeing any. The last is, again, let me again reiterate my thanks to all the department heads. Thank you for coming out today. Thank you for great presentations. We could read most of them. Oh, wait, we could read all of them but Travis's. I didn't ask you what you wished for because you already have enough for this year, so we're not giving you any more. But at the end of the day, they were fantastic presentations, and I think the dialogue today shows just how well we're doing in terms of having dialogue. So I have 4 other comments that I'd like to make at the very end that are just some things that I missed the last night. Is there any other council comments?
I just want to thank all the department heads too for the presentations today, because I know each of us are on separate committees and have our focuses, and to be able to see the accomplishments and the needs and the overviews of each of the departments was very beneficial on a personal basis. So thank you very much.
I wanted to say something similar. Of all the budgets I've sat through for all these years, I have never seen one that I understood as fully and able to incorporate that into the actions I've seen and what's coming in the future. So all of you, my sincere thanks, and especially to you who made it happen. You all contributed to it. You brought it all together, and I thank you because I actually really thought this was the best one I've ever seen. So thank you.
Agreed.
So, again, thank you, staff. I wanted to share 4 quick points. These are things that I missed last night or something that happened in the last 24 hours. Number 1 is the Brown Act extension. If you have not heard, we have been granted the right to continue to do the Zooms and the call-ins. We're going to see how that works out. The message to the public is we now know that we can do those after June 15th. We'll have some direction and some discussions between now and the 16th meeting, both as individual council members as well as with the city staff, and determine the course of action that we're moving forward with. But just wanted to make sure that was stated. Second, the Helmers Park mystery has been solved. And thank you to Tex Hoppus, who provided us that Mr. Helmer was the chemical engineer who discovered how to profitably skim the minerals out of Searles Lake. And that's how the park got named, is because it was one of the lands granted to the city from the Kerr-McGee Corporation, and they named it after Helmer. So, again, a little piece of Ridgecrest history solved. And on the idea of history, June 12th, June 14th is Flag Day. On June 12th, they're going to have a couple Flag Day ceremonies here in town. The first is at the Elks at 11 a.m., and I wanted to invite the community to participate. And then at 1 p.m. that same day, we'll be doing the dedication of the historic district, or the proclamation of the historic district at the USO building. I wanted to obviously welcome the community to come out to either one of those events. And then finally, we're not going to have a chance before it has happened, and that is the fireworks bingo is happening. The community fireworks show is scheduled for July 3rd. This is one of the best evenings in this community. If you understand and love what Ridgecrest is, it is an incredible community evening. And if you want to get out and have some fun with bingo, get out and be in a crowd again safely and have a little bit of fun. They are looking for their support. There's only 100 tickets, and I think 40 or even 50 or so are already sold out. Take a look at it, inquire. It's out there on social media. I'm sure you can find it with ease. I think S&M Collectibles has the tickets right now for sale.
And where's it held?
It'll be held at the Elks.
At the Elks?
This year. I believe that is the evening of the 12th. Is that correct? No, it's the morning of the, no, I'm sorry.
It's during the day.
It's-
Can't remember. That's okay.
Yeah. Huh? I actually don't think I think it may be the day of that day. I think it's the afternoon of the 12th, if I'm correct. But my apologies. I just remembered it off the top of my head. That was it. Thank you, everyone, for being out here. Thank you to our staff. And
Just one comment from staff.
absolutely.
We will be making those adjustments that were made in tonight's
19th.
budget, and we'll bring it back for your approval on the 16th.
Okay. And I think we had some really good discussions tonight about little itty-bitty changes, but they're big changes that reflect what we're doing for the community.
Yes, everything that we discussed, all the changes will be reflected in the budget that will be before you on the 16th.
Fantastic. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was a wonderful evening, actually a lot of fun. And it is 9:09, so whoever had 9 o'clock, you lost. 9:15, you win. We're adjourned.
Okay, here's the information.
And she got it.